Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the special business meeting for Tuesday, October 6th. Hatsqualin, Squamish, Oemeo. We are meeting tonight on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. For that, I am always grateful. We have an amended agenda in front of us, Council. We did get approval on the remaining bylaws for adoption, and so they will be contemplated this evening. So motion, hold on a second. Motion to move the amended agenda. By Councillor Stoner, seconded by. Where are they? I can only see a few of you. Thank you, Councillor Herford. I'm going to call the question as soon as I see quorum. There we go. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, under this new normal, Ministerial Order M192, in order to ensure transparency, openness, accessibility, and accountability at this meeting, we are providing that through the following means. This meeting is being live streamed. A video of this meeting will be available on the district's website for viewing on an on-demand basis. The meeting is open to the public for electronic participation, and limited public attendance is available at Brennan Park Recreation Center. Motion to approve Ministerial Order Motion M192 by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Motion carries. On to our electronic meeting policy. We have to read this at the beginning of every electronic special council meeting. Council members attending the meeting electronically are required to advise the chair of the meeting of the following circumstances: when the council member disconnects or reconnects, so that this can be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Council members are to identify themselves when they advise the chair they wish to speak by raising their hand if they're connected by video, or simply saying chair if they're connected by audio only. With respect to a vote, council members are only required to state a nay vote. No statement is required if the member is in favor. Council members and staff and anyone participating in the public shall put their telephone or computer on mute until it is their turn to speak. Council members shall be involved in and participate in the meeting. Council members shall text the corporate officer if they are having technical difficulty with their phone or computer. And if we're having technical difficulty on our side, we will recess the meeting for up to 10 minutes to fix that problem and get everyone connected again. Okay. Any notice of motion this evening? Seeing none. We have two delegations this evening. It's my pleasure first to welcome Belinda Grant, who is asking for a proclamation on pregnancy and infancy loss. Over to you, Ms. Grant.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me at your meeting tonight. Yeah, I just wanted to take some time to talk about Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day, which is taking place next week on October 15th. It's recognised around the world. It's definitely an international day of recognition for miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss, and SIDS. Unfortunately, I joined this club of losing our baby in 2015 when we lost our daughter, Elodie, at 35 weeks pregnant here in Squamish. And, you know, I think that like most families, you just try and find ways to honour your child and honour that loss and remember. And I know that sadly, here in Squamish, there is a lot of families that are also going through similar pain and grief. And I think just having a day that allows us to celebrate and remember is really important. I've got permission from the district to hold a wave of light ceremony. A wave of light ceremony is basically it's called the International Wave of Light Ceremony, where with every country around the world at 7 o'clock you light a candle for an hour, and it's meant to represent a wave of light that carries throughout the world for the day. So I'm basically just asking that council proclaim October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Day here in Squamish. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. And thank you for bringing this important day forward. I know this has touched friends that are very close to me, and I'm sorry for your loss and glad that there are days that we can remember these beautiful souls. So, Council, someone want to move this motion? Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Race. Any comments? I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your
joining
time.
us this evening.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Nelson Winterburn on behalf of the Squamish Senior Center Society Board. Welcome, Mr. Winterburn. Just making sure, there we go. Are you there, Mr. Winterburn?
I don't see my picture, but as long as you see it, that's all that matters.
We can hear you.
Oh, well, okay. Maybe that's the better part of me. Anyway, let me address my comments, and thank you very much for making the opportunity available. Available. Good evening, Mayor, councillors, and district staff. I am a director of the Squamish Senior Society and appreciate this opportunity to speak on their behalf. The Society has been attempting to meet with District of Squamish representatives since last December, but planned meetings were repeatedly postponed. Then came the COVID-19 virus. In the following weeks and months, the Senior Society has been left in the dark due to the lack of consultation. But in the meantime, plans seem to have gone ahead to remove seniors from the Seniors 55 Center. Our first inkling of strong start was by way of an announcement in the local paper. Councillors and Mayor, I'm sure you will agree this was not a positive step. The no consultation technique appears to have continued to this day. Fast forward to the present, and one finds it difficult to know where the seniors of Squamish are to have a home. We seniors would hope from this day forward, all plans for an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, divided seniors facilities, and worthwhile programs be tabled until such time as a mutually prepared arrangement, a senior strategy, indicating what the future might be through a comprehensive effort and how it can fit inclusively into the district's recreation master plan. There is no rush to sign the MOU as it can be amended, as noted by a letter I saw from Mayor Elliott. If there is no rush to move forward, we are certain we can come up with a solution that will work for all. Such a plan would be written by the Senior Society, District of Squamish staff, and council working together. Our goals are District of Squamish's goals. We want great programming and support services for seniors and all demographics for that matter. As baby boomers age into retirement, as they are now in spades the largest demographical cohort in the world, they will need and deserve suitable spaces and programming. This was foreseen in the years 2004 and 5 when the Senior Center was conceived and is even more relevant to, today. The Senior Society acknowledges that there is a very real daycare preschool deficiency in the community. We want solutions to be found to address those issues, but repurposing a facility that was constructed specifically with seniors in mind is not the solution. We seniors also want to be helpful in finding those solutions too. I do not have the answers, but I personally, and my fellow seniors, are prepared to work together to generate a mutually agreeable solution, it is my hope such an agreement can be completed with courtesy and respect. We raise the challenge. How could we, Council, District of Squamish, Senior Society, best meet the needs of the people of Squamish, including seniors, in the 55 Centre? And I send this with utmost respect, Nelson Winterburn. I'm sorry that I can't follow with the audio, the video presentation, but I suppose that's only on my side. Is that correct?
Yes, there should be a button at the bottom of your screen that says Start Video.
Okay, well, let's go with that. Start video. And there I am. Holy smoke. Okay, well, I'm sorry I didn't know that sooner. But again, that was a prepared statement. I did that in consultation with my fellow seniors. And we're very sincere in wanting to proceed with district staff, councillors, preparing a memorandum of understanding. I've had the pleasure of having a couple of discussions with one of the councillors, and I think that was a very promising discussion, very forthright and very sincere. And I think we need to do that as a group and come up with some solutions of how we can resolve where the seniors are going to live, where they're going to play, and how they're going to do it. Apart from that, are there any questions from councillors?
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Winterburn? I don't see any, Mr. Winterburn, but I know
Sorry.
this item is later on our agenda, and I know that council will take your words into consideration as our staff present the MOU on the agenda this evening.
Okay. Would you like me to send a copy of this presentation to you, or is it duly recorded?
It is recorded on the audio, but happy for you to send that so that it can be included.
Okay. I'll figure out how to get it to you. I won't ask you over the air what your the right email address is. Well, that's the extent of our presentation. We hope that you deliberate and make contact with us, and we'll move forward from there. We've got a great community, a great bunch of people, facilities that I know are in a challenge, but working together, I know that we're going to have some positive results.
Thank you, Mr. Winterburn. I'm thankful that you came tonight and appreciate the comments that you presented on behalf of the board.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Have a good night and good luck with the rest of your evening.
Thank you very much.
And do I press the red X here to get off the program?
That's right. Unless you want to listen to the rest of our meeting, that's what you need to do.
Thank you for the offer, but I will decline.
Okay, I understand.
Good evening.
Bye-bye. So as with any of our meetings, we do consider any unscheduled public attendance. So this is anyone that feels that they have an item that can't wait 2 weeks to the next agenda. And if you are on WebEx, you would go to the speakers panel and raise your hand.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, it is *3. Seeing none, we will move on. We have first up on our timed items from community planning is development permit number 530. This is at 41312 Government Road. This is a development permit with some variances, and I will go over to Councilor Herford.
Thank you. I'm going to declare a conflict here. My business is occupies some space in the adjacent property that's held by the same landlord. So to avoid any appearance of bias, I'm going to remove myself from this meeting, and I will look forward to the text when it's safe to return. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Herford. Okay, I always forget. Do I need to read this first or after Mr. Daly's presentation? I'm going to read it now. Okay, with regard to development permit number 530, the proponent and members of the public will be given the opportunity to be heard electronically via telephone or from your computer or at Brennan Park, if there is someone at Brennan Park. With respect to the proposed variances to District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011. That's not right. Oh, yes, it is, sorry. There is limited in-person attendance and participation available at Brennan Park for those who are unable to participate electronically or to watch the live stream. There are 3 proposed variances to the zoning bylaw, and the proposed wording is outlined in the staff report. Proposed variance to 1.3, the definition of usable open space, common. Proposed variance to section 41.2B sub 3, location of parking facilities. And number 3, proposed variance to section 41.11B sub 1, design criteria. Details to participate via telephone or the WebEx platform are displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting and are included on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, please raise your hand, so to speak, via telephone by dialing *3 or via WebEx by opening the participant panel and by clicking on the hand icon. Please note that when it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt via telephone or a dialog box via WebEx. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood. Please note that speakers will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address council. If you experience technical difficulties, please use the chat function to send the host a message or email hearing@squamish.ca. I'll turn it over to staff for their presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Daly, Development and Subdivision Coordinator with Community Planning. I'm here tonight to present development permit number 530. Subject property is located at 41312 Government Road and is currently developed with a large garage building and is used as overflow parking for the adjacent Eagle Run Village mixed-use development. Subject lands are zoned multiple unit residential 3, RM3. The property to the north is zoned C1, local commercial, while other neighboring properties are zoned RS1 and RS2. The property immediately south is zoned rural residential 2 and is in the agriculture land reserve. The subject property was rezoned from land use contract to multiple unit residential 3 in 2010. The proposed development is located within a secondary floodway. As such, Development Permit Area 2 protection from flood hazard guidelines will apply. Flood hazard and debris flow hazard are addressed through a flood hazard report that has been reviewed and accepted by staff. A flood covenant will be registered on title to ensure the recommendations of the flood hazard report are followed. This DP application seeks to allow for the construction of a 36-unit rental apartment building. The 5-story building proposes a mix of 10 one-bedroom units and 26 two-bedroom units, ranging in size from 675 square feet to 942 square feet. The units will be secured as market rental in perpetuity through a housing agreement. The building's form and character includes materials and forms that are varied but balanced to avoid monotony. A mix of natural materials, naturally toned materials, and extensive landscaping help screen the first story of the building. This slide shows renderings of the west elevation of the building from Government Road. This slide shows a rendering of the east elevation looking northwest and southwest. Landscaping consists of native plants that are conducive to bird habitat and bear-aware guidelines. The waste stream is located on the main floor adjacent to the parkade and can be accessed from the rear lane for pickup. Frontage improvements associated with this application will be finalized through the servicing agreement process. The district is in the process of completing a government road corridor concept that will likely include street tree planting, a sidewalk, and an on-street bike lane, which would not allow for on-street parking along this frontage. The servicing agreement will secure frontage improvements along both properties. 573 square meters of shared open space is provided in front of the building along Government Road. A variance to the definition of shared open space is requested to permit the shared open space in a required front yard setback. A portion of the open space is activated with planters for urban agriculture opportunities, while the other area provides a play area for children. The play area is partially covered by shade sails. There are 2 other outdoor amenity spaces proposed. 115 square meters on the second floor, which is accessed off the shared indoor amenity room, and 143 square meters on the 5th floor. This slide shows an overhead view of the proposed development, showing the shared outdoor spaces at grade and on the 2nd and 5th floors. Other projects that have been provided outdoor spaces in the required front yard setback in recent years are Sitka Lane on Buckley Avenue, across from the secondary school. Development permit number 529, a multifamily development recently approved on the Crescent in University Heights, provided a shared open space in an exterior side yard setback. While this was not proposed in a required front yard setback, the open space was situated in front of the front entrances of the buildings. The development is accessed off Government Road. The development requires 67 parking stalls, including 3 accessible parking stalls, 2 of which will be provided in the parkade of the building. The other will be located at the south end of the adjacent property near the entrance to the development. 20 stalls in the parkade will be provided with shared access to electric vehicle charging receptacles. The remaining stalls in the parkade will have pre-wiring for electric vehicle charging receptacles, which meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The proponent has provided a parking study for the subject property and for the adjacent property at 41340 Government Road. The parking study proposes that 47 of the required stalls will be provided on the subject property, and the remaining 20 stalls be provided on the adjacent property at 41340 Government Road, as there is excess and underutilized parking that could accommodate the deficient stalls. A variance to section 41.2, location of parking facilities, is requested to allow the residential parking spaces to be located on the adjacent parcel at 41340 Government Road. Section 41.2 allows for parking spaces for non-residential uses to be located on a lot within 400 meters of the subject property, provided certain conditions are met, such as registering a covenant on the parcel where the parking spaces will be located. For clarity, the variance request is not proposing a reduction in the number of required parking spaces. It is proposing to provide a number of the required parking spaces on the adjacent lot. Staff report this requested variance as 41340 Government Road is located immediately adjacent to the proposed development and shares the same owner. And the aforementioned parking study confirms the adjacent parking lot has the capacity to accommodate the shared parking arrangement for the deficient stalls. This variance would also facilitate the development of 100% market rental building in the Brackendale neighborhood. Two-way traffic is proposed at the entrance to the development to allow for residents who have their assigned parking stalls in the parkade on the first story to turn left out onto Government Road. The remainder of the drive aisle providing access to the stalls around the rear of the building will be one-way traffic, requiring residents with assigned parking stalls behind the building or on the adjacent property to exit on Eagle Run Drive. 33 parking stalls are provided in the parkade. This development proposal is requesting 3 variances to the zoning bylaw. The variance request to section 41.2, location of parking facilities, was outlined on the previous slide. The next variance request is to the definition of shared open space to allow the shared open space to be located in a required front yard setback. The definition of shared open space means a compact, level, unobstructed area or areas providing maximized access to sunlight, having no dimension less than 6.10 meters, no slope greater than 5% to ensure universal access, and being available for the safe and convenient use by the occupants or users of the building or the lot for recreation or leisure activities, but specifically excludes areas used for a required front yard setback. Staff support this variance request as locating the shared open space in the required front yard setback would meet all the other requirements stipulated in the definition and would activate the front yard setback. The alternative would be to place the open space in the rear yard, which would not receive as much sunlight and would push required parking spaces in the front yard, which would not meet DPA 3 guidelines related to parking. A third variance request to section 41.11 BI, design criteria, to eliminate the requirement for a 2-meter landscape buffer along the eastern property line. Staff are supportive of this variance as the neighboring properties are densely screened with large trees along the shared property line, and the removal of the buffer will accommodate more required parking along the rear lane behind the building. The proposed building and site design have been reviewed for alignment with DPA 3 guidelines. Staff review concluded that the guidelines are largely met. Legislated and district processes for engagement were followed for this application. A development proposal sign was installed on the property, and the project was advertised on the development showcase. Variance notifications were delivered to properties within 100 meters. 17 public comments had been received and included in the agenda package at the time this presentation was prepared. Staff recommend the council authorize the development permit number 530, subject to the following conditions. Staff also recommend that development permit number 530 include the following 3 variances to definitions, location of parking facilities, and design criteria of the zoning bylaw as noted in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Council, anybody have any questions before I go to the proponent or the public? Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I'm just curious, it was unclear to me in the parking study whether it took into account the overflow parking that's currently occurring on the site that is set for development. So it spoke about how many parking spots are required on the site next to it and how the usability of those spots, but it didn't actually address how many vehicles are currently using the site that is proposed for development for parking. Or did I miss that in the parking study?
Through the mayor, that is correct. It did not look at the adjacent parking lot where the proposed development is situated. That I believe is informally used as parking for the adjacent property. And the parking study concluded that there is sufficient parking to accommodate the required parking stalls for the uses for the existing businesses on the subject property, and that it is underutilized.
All right. And then I just wanted to clarify the entry exit off of government. Has there been a traffic safety plan and or any consideration from our engineering department on the allowability of a left-hand turn out of there?
Through the mayor, the traffic study for that aspect was not completed for this project. It was not noted in the referral process or the internal referral process as a concern. Given that a majority of the parking stalls are required kind of around the back of the building and would require that the vehicles exit on Eagle Run, I believe that addressed their concern, but it was not noted when the development was referred to staff for comment.
Okay, and then I just have one further question. With respect to some of the feedback that we received in writing, there seemed to be a number of folks who were under the impression that the amount of amenity space being provided was 50% of what was actually required. But I didn't see that in the actual plans provided. So I'm just wondering if you can confirm that the actual square footage of the amenity space being provided is actually in accordance with our zoning bylaw.
Through the chair, that is correct. It meets the zoning bylaw requirements. The initial development permit application was seeking a variance to the required open space. However, as the development proceeded, they were able to meet that requirement, largely by providing it in the front yard.
Thank you.
Councillor Race and then Councillor Pettengill.
Thank you. 2 questions. One is again with respect to parking. And from my reading of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, this the capacity arises because it's assumed that at nighttime when all the apartment residents would be home, the businesses in the adjoining properties would close, and so that parking lot would be substantially empty. Although in the report it talks about the site, as Councillor Stoner noted, the site that we're talking about here is being used now for overflow parking from the next door site. So this seems to be dependent on what time of the day you're looking at these sites. And so it raised the question in my mind, what happens Saturday noon when everybody in the apartment building might be home from work and the businesses next door are open? sort of peak capacity for both buildings. Has that been considered?
So through the chair, apologies for stating that obviously that would cause some confusion in the report that is used for overflow parking. It is cars do park there. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. My understanding of the traffic report was stating that it is underutilized throughout the entirety of the day. There's capacity to accommodate shared stalls with the commercial businesses that are operating there. Which is allowed through the zoning bylaw. And the calculation was done based on the table in, I believe, section 41.7, which stated that there is at least 12 stalls and up to 35 stalls available at any given point in the day to be shared between the uses. The variance request in this specific application is to allow this shared parking to occur on a different lot other than the subject property. I'm not sure if I have addressed your question, but my understanding of the parking demand that was calculated in the shared parking agreement was that the demand from the parking never exceeds the vehicle parking space requirement of 38 vehicle parking spaces in the evening as per the bylaw. And the traffic engineer is recommending that the stalls be shared and that there's unlikely to be conflicts if there was a scenario in which everything was at peak capacity, which would be unlikely given that the cafe is open until 4 p.m. and the restaurant, which requires the majority of the parking, is only open from 5 p.m. onwards.
Councillor Race, just so you know, your audio is not very great tonight.
No, I've got that problem again. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll speak closer. The second question was with respect to the recommendation. And first, the issuing of DP subject to a commitment from the proponent that any equipment integral for the heating of the building or the hot water system will use a renewable energy source and that no gas fireplaces will be provided in any of the dwelling units. And I'm wondering why that's there. And I say that because when I look through the CP and so forth, it doesn't appear to be a design guideline. And so I'm wondering why we would consider that as a condition of the DP.
Through the chair, that was requested by staff to the developer, given that there's variances requested through this application, and the developer committed to providing electrical sources to heat or cool the building. So that it was in their intention to provide that anyways, and staff thought it was reasonable to request that a low carbon energy source be used to heat or cool the building. It was done on another project up at University Heights, a multifamily building. That didn't require any variances. However, that developer also agreed to that stipulation. So staff was moving forward with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Villaneskis, did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Brian's answer on the low carbon energy system. This is something that's coming from the Community Climate Action Plan. We have direction to incentivize low carbon energy systems in buildings. And so whenever there's a variance, we try to get ahead of the policy changes that are coming.
Thank you. Councillor Pettengill.
Yes, and the first may be just a clarification of an understanding I think I may have had. I think I may have been confusing front setback and statutory right-of-way. In my first reading, I was understanding that the proposal was to put this open space on a statutory right-of-way that we already had, but I gather it's the opposite. It's going into a front setback, and then we would require that statutory right-of-way. Is that correct?
Through the chair, there was not a statutory right-of-way requested for public access on this shared open space. It is being proposed in a required front yard setback. It is not being proposed on an existing or on a proposed statutory right-of-way. It is in a required front yard setback.
Okay, thank you. The other thing, just on the parking, are we at a point where we are considering the sort of demographic that would live in this building and where they might work, that sort of demographic, what sort of employment they would need in the proximity of that? And I'm just, in terms of what kind of cars they would actually need to live in this building, or are we not there yet in terms of our parking analysis?
I might let my director, Jonas Vilaniskis, answer that question if you wouldn't mind.
Yes. So no, we don't consider the population in the building and how it relates to parking requirements. In this case, we have done something like that previously with one development downtown, which was for seniors housing, and so the parking requirements were really based on that age group. And what we've learned in town from other seniors housing units, but this is not the case here.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have some, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Stoner. So about the left turn onto Government Road, is it required, or is it okay to have a one-way in, one-way out that moves around the back of the building?
Through you, Mayor, it is not a requirement. It would be possible to require a one-way in, one-way out, but it is not required in the zoning bylaw. Some rationale to allow for that may be to kind of reduce the number of vehicles traveling along that back lane, but it is not a requirement. And if this is a concern of council, perhaps it could be addressed.
Would you be able to share your screen again and show exactly
Sure.
where the bike lane is in relation to the road and the sidewalk?
So there's a vehicle in the one lane with an arrow. And the design for this section of Government Road is still not finalized. So this is sort of a high level overview of what would likely be proposed. But there you could see a vehicle with the directional arrows, and then the dotted line right to the east of that would be a bike lane. Kind of in between the vehicle, there's a dotted line that looks sort of like a shoulder on this drawing, and then a sidewalk along there. In between the sidewalk and the vehicle would be the bike lane.
Okay. In terms of the parking issue, sorry, I'm just going to my questions here. This was calculated in January, but it also doesn't contemplate a change in use in that adjacent property. So what if the cafe changed its use and then it was open in the evening as well? What if the retail space became something else and had later hours? So what's the capacity for change on this adjacent lot? Or does the landlord now regulate what times these businesses can be open because the parking is now restricted by sharing with the lot next door?
So through you, Mayor, the restrictive covenant will designate the shared parking stalls, and it will also limit the business licenses that would be available for the property next door. So should it redevelop or want to have a change of use, it will need to accommodate those stalls that have been proposed there. Given that they are proposed to be shared right now, they would need to ensure that they meet the existing parking requirement, and that an increase in the intensity of a use that would trigger more parking requirements would not be able to obtain a business license. But maybe I'll let Mr. Vilaniskis jump in.
Go ahead, Mr. Vilaniskis.
Thank you. So both from a zoning bylaw parking requirements, I think both of those uses, retail and restaurant, are probably some of the highest parking generating in terms of how much minimum parking is required. So a change in use in either one of those uses it's unlikely that would trigger a higher need for parking unless there was expansion of the building on that property. And I just wanted to add on the wraparound, the access off of Government Road. It may be a fire requirement that there be that the driveway loop around. I'm not sure, Brian, if you can clarify that.
That was not a requirement through the referral process. This was what the developer proposed, but that would allow for more egress from the building in the event of a fire.
Yes, and often the road network that loops around the building is building code requirement for fire access. So the applicant might have designed it with that in mind.
Yeah, but going back to the parking, I wasn't so concerned about the change in use, but rather the change in hours. The parking assumption assumes that the cafe will always close by 4 and that the restaurant next door will only open at 5. And so if I'm a tenant there and I see a way to expand my business, so now I want to be a cafe during the day and a wine bar in the evening, am I now limited because of the change on the adjacent lot and the parking that will now be shared with residents who are home from work and their cars are in the parking lot? So I'm just wondering how the adjacent lot now evolves or doesn't evolve because of this shared parking regimen.
So the shared parking arrangement would certainly limit the options for the adjacent parking or the adjacent development to expand in the future. It does require that those stalls are shared at those times so that they are available for the residents or for the customers. So it would have an impact on that.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
I have currently forgotten my question. I'll think about it and come back.
That's all right. It happens. Councillor Pettengill and then Councillor Ray. Oh, wait, she's back. Councillor Stoner.
I remember. In the staff report, it speaks that the proponent is providing 36 market rental housing, which is in line with Council's strategic plan on housing affordability and diversity. But as I read through Council's strategic plan, all of our bullet points speak to affordability. So I just want to clarify that none of the units being provided are affordable market rental. They are all market rental, period.
Correct. They are all market rental, period. They are not affordable. They are just providing a mix of units, particularly a number of 2-bedrooms, which is increasing the diversity of rental housing available.
Right. Any follow-up, Councillor Stoner? Or go to Councillor Pettengill and then Councillor Ray.
Thank you. I think you mentioned there's some accessible parking spots dedicated on the new site. On the overflow or the adjacent lot, given there's going to be more demand on that parking, are we requiring additional accessible spots just to make sure those are always available on both lots?
Through the chair, the accessible stalls that are required on the existing lot will remain, and the additional accessible stalls are being provided. 2 are provided in the parkade of the proposed development building, and then 1 is being proposed on the adjacent property very close to the entrance to the building. So that's to ensure that the existing spots are maintained, and then there's additional spots to accommodate any increased demand for accessible stalls.
Okay, thank you. And then just right now, both lots are owned by the same individual. As there's this dependence on the second lot being for overflow and so on, does that somehow require that these maintain a single owner, or how do we kind of deal with that? Or is that an issue for us?
Through the chair, a restrictive covenant will be registered on both properties, stipulating the shared parking arrangement. So that should secure that through the future, whether or not the parcels change hands. Obviously, it would be registered on title, so that would be there for any future owner to see.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you. And Still on parking. So,
Okay,
do the bylaws, is
counterintuitively, we're going to ask you to lean back from your mic and see if that works better. Right there.
that better?
That's a little better.
Okay, I'll try and find the sweet spot here. So, with the parking, do our bylaws distinguish between dedicated parking spots and shared parking spots when meeting a parking requirement?
Through the chair, the zoning bylaw allows for dedicated parking stalls to be shared between uses, between in this instance residential and commercial, provided a parking study has been performed by a parking engineer, which has been contemplated in this case, and then the calculation for when these shared periods are allowed is also stipulated in that section of the zoning bylaw. Again, the variance for this is to allow residential stalls to be provided on a lot that is not the same as theirs. Typically, if this was all one parcel, the shared parking arrangement would just require this parking study to be provided. The variance in this instance is to allow the stalls to be on a lot that is not the same as the one that's requiring the development.
Sharing in this case, if I can follow up,
Yeah, go ahead.
is between the residential on this property and the commercial next door. That's the share?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you. Any other questions? There was mention somewhere in here around public art, but I didn't see where that would be placed in the drawing.
The developer proposed that public art could go on the north elevation. There's a wall that has some cultured stone and is believe white. If you would like me to share my screen again, I could do that. But there's a section of the wall that the proponent during ADP, a comment was made that perhaps local art should go on that face of the building, and the proponent said that they would work with the local artist to propose something on there, but that hasn't been finalized at this time. Let me just pull up the rendering. So as you can see on this lower section here, there's a large kind of blank or a large wall with white cultured stone. So ADP's recommendation was to consider some public art in that location, and the developer said that they would explore that option.
Are they exploring the option or committing to that option?
They have committed to, it has not been secured as a condition of the development permit, but they have expressed interest in exploring that option.
That's a strange thing, Mr. Daly. Do we want it or do we not? Why wouldn't we secure it in the development permit?
It can be secured through the development permit. That was an oversight on my part. I apologize.
Okay. Any other questions before I go to the public? Councillor Stoner.
One more point of clarification on the parking piece, because now I have my numbers confused. So I believe, Mr. Daly, at the end of your presentation, you said that they were seeking a variance to put 21 parking spaces on the adjacent property. Is that correct? 21 spaces?
Correct. The request is to vary the section to allow a residential parking stall to be provided on the adjacent property, and the number is 21 stalls to be shared with commercial uses on the adjacent property.
And so when I look back at the parking study, page 67 of our package, it summarizes that there's an excess of 41 vehicle parking spaces during the daytime and 20 vehicle spaces during the evening. So at a conservative approach, there's a maximum of, like the floor there to me is the 20 vehicles, and they're requesting 21. So I'm just curious how that number connects.
I believe that was an error in the parking study, a typo, because 67 spaces are required total, and 47 are being proposed on the subject property. So that would require 20 remaining stalls to be shared. I believe it was just an oversight in the parking study.
The parking study or the request?
The parking study. The deficient stalls are 20 stalls. It's 67 total for the development. 47 are being provided at where the development is. 20 are deficient.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll go to the public. Council, I'll come back to you. We don't have anyone at Brennan Park, but there is one person on WebEx. A couple of people on WebEx with their hand up. So I'll go to, is the proposal?
We are first up, we have Lindsay Kingston. Lindsay, your next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have up to 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
I don't hear.
Lindsay, can you hear us?
Here you do. I am muted.
Oh, Lindsay.
Hi.
Sorry.
Okay.
Would you mind starting again?
Okay, my name is Lindsay Kingston. I live at 41309 Meadow Avenue, which is the property adjacent at the back of the proposed development. I have two things I would like to address. The first is in all of the drawings that are shown, and it would be wonderful if they could be shown again. This time I would appreciate if you could consider the fact that the greenery on the back of the building, which is shown in mass, it's lots of greenery that you see, that is not the development. That is our backyards. That is our greenery that we have that is not part of the development. The property line stops and there is concrete right to the edge. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Daly, please, but that's how I see it. My next concern is how are we going to address safety at the back of that property? There's traffic now flowing through. There's already people who shortcut through the businesses there to get around the four-way stop. Sometimes that government road four-way stop backs up quite far. People are going to shortcut through. Are there going to be speed bumps? How are we also going to protect the families that are having their backyards against that property? I have a daycare. If someone were to smash through that fence, it's not much to protect us. Is there a guardrail? Is there something to protect us? I mean, I think that it's really misleading to just show all the green space back there. Those are our trees. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kingston. Mr. Daly, controlling speed or diverting cut-throughs through the property, any thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry about that. There is existing fencing along the rear property line, and given that this will be a drive aisle area, it is staff's consideration that it is unlikely that there will be a high use of pedestrian traffic walking through there in the future. The last speaker was correct. All of that greenery, the densely planted trees are on the adjacent property. So that is a correct statement. But there is existing fencing in the area, and hopefully the addition of this development will decrease the amount of pedestrians that are shortcutting through the property.
I think Ms. Kingston was referring to drivers, trying to...
Drivers are shortcutting.
Yeah, shortcutting the...
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying. I believe it would be unlikely that drivers would be shortcutting through this development once a building is constructed there. It would be less convenient to drive around such a large development, and it would indicate that this is private property and likely dissuade drivers from driving around the long way around that building.
Any further questions?
Yep, we have another raised hand on WebEx. We have Devin Bouchard. Devin, you're our next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council, and please go ahead.
Great. Is my audio working okay?
You bet.
Hi, this is Devin Bouchard. I live at 1591 Eagle Run Drive. We're at the corner of Eagle Run and Government, facing the coffee shop and the restaurant and looking at the proposed property. And we're a small family, myself, my wife, and we have a 4-month-old baby. But I just wanted to say I'm generally supportive of economic progress and development. But I think it's very important that these things are done responsibly and in a way that sort of stewards responsible development in our community. And if you look at this proposed project, I can appreciate the commercial drivers behind trying to create the maximum number of rental units that you can occupy on a lot of space to take full advantage of it. But I think the things that are talking about being compromised on are the green space and the green perimeter, the parking, which is always a challenge, and the outdoor common space, which is intended to be, fostering our sort of outdoor lifestyle and encouraging people to be out in the outdoors. And with regards to the common space, we live on this street, and government is a very, very loud, very, very busy road, and that's probably only going to increase over time. And by granting this variance to allow the outdoor common space intended for sort of recreation, gardening, children playing, that kind of thing, to be closer and closer to that very noisy, very busy corridor, I think is something that you should consider strongly, and consider, finding a way to create a development where that common space is appropriately not in the front setback. With regards to the parking, there's a really great comment by Chris about are the people who are likely going to be occupying that space and the types of vehicles they'll have being considered. I think, again, we're a town and a city that has a lot of commuters to the city, which brings a lot of cars, like maybe one car per job. So a 2-bedroom place might have 2 cars. And also a place where there's a lot of outdoor recreational enthusiasts, and those bring sort of dirt bikes, motorcycles, snowmobiles, small trailers, small campers. I think it's important to consider that parking may end up being very stretched if people have a recreational vehicle and 2 cars in a 2-bedroom apartment. And there will be a tendency for that to probably bleed over into the commercial parking lot and bleed over into that small little gravel parking lot behind the Petro-Canada, where there's some parking to access the dike. So I think that when developments are proposed, I think it would be important to try to uphold the bylaws and contain the residential parking to the size of the lot that's being proposed, rather than allow it to sort of bleed over to an adjacent lot, because I think chronically parking is very challenging. And I think that should cover all of my points. I just wanted to say one other piece of information that might be useful to consider in the larger, longer-term traffic planning for the area. Government, again, is very loud, and a lot of people stop at the stop sign of Government and Eagle Run and then accelerate very loudly and strongly, especially on the straightaway going south towards the watershed area. You might want to consider the use of a roundabout or some traffic calming things to kind of slow the traffic but not bring it to a complete stop. That would probably be to the benefit of whatever development goes ahead on the proposed lot, as well as a lot of the adjacent areas here. So you may want to consider kind of the moderating the flow of traffic to foster a little bit less acceleration and a little bit less noise pollution for that outdoor common space that's going to be in any way probably quite close to Government Road. So thank you for hearing my comments, and I'm done now.
Thank you, Mr. Bouchard. Council, any other questions? I want to come back to just understanding the zoning on the lot where the cafe and restaurant and retail space are. And I get that it's the same landlord and this plan works right now, but is there the ability then to redevelop this lot and not impact the parking agreement for this development? Or does this freeze what is currently there?
So through you, Mayor, any redevelopment, future redevelopment of the lot where the proposed parking is being shared would have to consider the stalls that are being shared there in the future. That's not to say that it could not be redeveloped in the future with a proposal that considers the uses that they would like to have on site. They would just have to ensure that the shared parking stalls are either provided or shared with a similar use in the future. So it would just take more careful planning by the proponent in the future whenever they go to redevelop this parcel. Obviously, it's being secured through a covenant, so that would be recognized at the development permit review process when the application is made.
Mr. Valencia, I'll go to you, but maybe also, isn't it designated as a neighborhood hub area for Brackendale as well in the OCP? So if you want to respond to my previous question, I'll add that one on top.
Okay, I will quickly jump in just to note that the covenant will be in favor of the district, so district will be signatory to this parking scheme. And in the future, if one of the properties needs to redevelop the commercial property, let's say, the district will be able to, or would be able to work with both landowners to make sure that the parking requirements are addressed for that adjacent development. You know, district could look at another variance, let's say in 10 or 20 years, if the parking requirements have gone down because behavioral shifts, the district would be able to manage that those needs in the future.
And is this a neighborhood hub designated in the OCP?
Brian, over to you. I'm pretty sure it is.
I believe on the actual map in the OCP, the star is indicated kind of closer to the general store project or general store building. However, but I think that it's kind of large enough that it encompasses this area. But the way that map is working is shown in the OCP. There's specific kind of large stars on the map that indicate a neighborhood node. This would be extremely close to the general store one, so I would say that it's likely considered a neighborhood node.
So we're not concerned that we're limiting our ability to build out that node with actually the walkable, commercial, service-oriented development that we would want in a commercial node by limiting its parking in 2020. Did staff contemplate the possibility that we might be doing this with this variance? Go ahead, Mr. Vilnius.
Yes, I don't believe we are concerned. Multifamily housing in a neighborhood node is something that is in line with the designation. As I mentioned, as one of these properties develop, the district would be able to manage the needs at that time. But at this point in time, this is something that we're supportive because we do have a shortage in rental housing, and so we're realizing that the property has certain constraints, you know, there's trade-offs that have to be made, and in this case, the provision of rental housing seems to be more benefit, particularly in a neighborhood node.
Okay. We have another raised hand, but go ahead, Councillor Stoner, and then I'll go back to the public.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm just curious about the rear setback line and the variance on the 2-meter planting screening. That doesn't actually change the physical rear setback, correct? Like there's no building in the rear setback per se. It's just a variance for the green screening.
That's correct.
Thank you.
We'll go to the public.
Okay, we're going to a WebEx caller. So we have Sarah Ward on the line. Hi, Sarah, you're our next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record. You have up to 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Sarah Ward and my address is 1595 Eagle Run Drive. So I live directly across the road from the public cycle zone the Bean. My concern is definitely the parking, so and also the size of the development. So the parking, I feel like I work from home and my office actually looks straight out onto the parking lot. So I'm looking at the parking lot all day long, and I actually find that the findings of the study are actually in reverse. I find that the car park is quieter in the evening than it is during the day. And I've lived in the neighbourhood and faced this car parking lot for 5 years. So I'm interested in those results. Also, the car parking study, is it based upon 1 car per household? I know this issue was raised by Devon as well, but most of these people I feel would have possibly 2 cars per household, and so that's a concern, that there would be other cars that would be part of that household, not just one. And also, what happens when there's visitors? So people coming to visit. If you're putting in this new community space, we already have, this is a community hub. On the weekends, lots of people gather around the coffee shop, come to the Republic Bicycle Shop, and it's a hub where families gather. And now that they've painted the beautiful mural that you'll see in front of our property, there's seating there, and people are gathering, more and more people are coming just to be part of that community. If you have a space where children can play and gather, then that's going to attract people. And if there's no adequate parking to allow for that, as well as the people that are living in this proposed development, then that is a concern for me. And also where the children's play area is positioned, right near Government Road. I mean, that's an area that even crossing that road with my children, it's scary. It's a busy road. There's a lot of traffic already. And as Devon said, with these cars going around the back of the development and then coming straight towards our property, and Lindsay's house where the back of their fence is, I'm thinking about, there's no controlling when people come and go from the development. So at all times of the night, you'll have people's headlights, streaming into your property, traffic noise. These are my main concerns. So I appreciate being heard.
Thank you very much. Do we have?
Yeah, we're going to go to another WebEx caller. So we have Lori Schmidt on the line. Lori, you're our next speaker. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes to address council. Please go ahead.
My name is Lori Schmidt. I have to state that I am a representative of the developer and the owner, so I don't know if this is the point at which I can speak, or if you want me to wait until.
No, absolutely. Go ahead.
I just want to take a minute. First of all, thank staff for their hard work on this. And I wanted, first of all, on the public art piece, I know that it came up and we had discussions on that. And I can say that we are committed to providing some type of public art and working with a local artist on that, just to clarify. And I understand everyone's concerns over the parking. It's always a concern moving forward. We trust staff's analysis of this as well as our professional engineer who did the analysis, and understanding that the developer also owns both properties. We can ensure that we will monitor and manage it continually moving forward. So, I mean, it's also something that we'll watch.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the proponent or for staff? Councilor French?
Thank you. Chair, I just note that the accessible design expert on the advisory design panel didn't support this project. And that has me wondering, are there any units within the complex that are specifically designed with accessibility as a priority?
Through the chair, there are a number of units that are adaptable. They are not designed specifically at this time, but they are adaptable to facilitate that in the future. And I can clarify that I believe one of the reasons that the accessibility expert on the advisory design panel was not supportive of the project was that the original design submission did not address a number of accessibility requirements that she noted. And in the subsequent design iteration afterwards, a lot of those issues were addressed. A lot of them were building code issues, so they were addressed, and they will be addressed through the building permit process as well.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Yes, Councilor Stoner.
Thank you, through the chair. Steph, I'm just curious if there was any discussion with the proponent for the variance on the setback with the 2 meters of screening, providing a fence there instead, or securing a fence.
That was not discussed, given that there is an existing fence. So that was the rationale for not having that discussion. The staff thought it was appropriate to vary the 2 meter buffer requirement, given that the variances to the siting of the building cannot be supported because it is located in a secondary floodway, and the official community plan has policies that state that any building in a secondary floodway should not have variances to set required setbacks varied, because it could affect the flood conveyance on the property. So staff thought it was more reasonable to vary the landscape buffer to accommodate the parking, but there was no discussion regarding securing a fence.
Okay, we're going to go back to WebEx.
Yep, so we have Lori Schmidt, the proponent, once again. Lori, I'm just going to unmute the mic and you can address council.
Sorry, I didn't. Did it?
Yep, you're all good.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't push.
You're fine. Oh. Okay.
Oh, so sorry, Lori, your hand was up, but you didn't take it down again, so we just got confused.
Yep.
So that's our fault. Thank you.
So I do have 2 more speakers in line on WebEx. We have Lindsay Kingston once again. So Lindsay, you'll have 5 minutes to address council. Please restate your name and address for the record, and you can go ahead.
Hi there, Lindsay Kingston, 41309 Meadow Avenue. I just have a question that, this will be my first time owning property shared with a large development. And speaking to the fence that is shared along that property line, normally if you build a fence with your neighbor, you kind of talk to them and you go half-seas or you kind of make arrangements. The fence along the property line is not great. It's, our neighbor next to us, theirs is falling down. It's practically not even there. There's blackberry bushes, totally overrun. So what is the process with the development? Like, it's not like you're going to talk to your neighbor anymore to figure out your fence line. Maybe you guys could kind of educate me a little bit on that one.
It's a good question. I'm not sure that I know the answer. Mr. Vilaniskis?
Thank you, Mayor. So normally the district doesn't require fencing between properties. That's completely between the property owners. And in this case, the property owner right now is the applicant, and at some point in the future, that might change. But it's unlikely that this building will have a strata, so there will always be one owner to deal with.
Any further comments, Ms. Kingston?
Oh, okay, so I have Devin Bouchard on the line again.
Oh,
Devin?
sorry. I actually did have another one. I didn't unmute myself properly. Sorry.
That's all good.
Is it unreasonable to somehow at this point, when they're just thinking about building it, to somehow have the neighbors sharing the property line ask the developer to rebuild that whole fence and, kind of secure that area for us? Or how does that conversation get started?
I will let staff answer this. That's probably something that would have had to be secured at rezoning, and we're at the development permit stage, but staff, I'll let you weigh in.
Through you, Mayor. So I know the applicant is on the line as well, and the applicant could weigh in if that's something that they're prepared to do it. It's voluntarily. We would be happy to secure that in the development permit as a condition. And it could just be included as a condition of issuance in the motion.
So, but what you're saying, Mr. Vilaniskis, is we can't compel it at this stage. The applicant would have to volunteer.
That's normally how the variances work. The applicant has to agree to the conditions, and like I said, the fencing is not something that we would normally deal with between property owners.
But generally, for changing conditions, we would have to send this back to staff for that.
Through you, Mayor, no. The council could just add that as a condition of issuance in the motion.
Oh, okay. I thought we needed the agreement of the proponent to do that.
Sorry, excuse me. We do need agreement from the proponent, and the proponent could weigh in here if he's prepared to do that or not.
Okay. Ms. Kingston, any further comments? Okay. I'm looking to our moderator.
So we're going to go back to the proponent, Lori Schmidt. Lori, you will have 5 minutes to speak to address council, and your time starts now.
No, I just wanted to speak to Ms. Kingston's last comment. I mean, we'd be happy, speaking on behalf of the owner, to work with immediate neighbors on a fence, as it benefits both parties. So, I mean, we're more than happy to do that.
Okay, and we have one more WebEx speaker. It's Devin Bouchard. So Devin, please restate your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes to address council, and your time starts now.
Hi, Devin Bouchard from 1591 Eagle Run Drive. I wanted to add one more comment that I thought of in regards to the fact that this area is, either a formal or informal community hub, and there's a proposed development that will bring, a big influx of people living there, but also visitors to the area. There is currently no street parking along Government on either side, and there's no street parking in sort of the block on Eagle Run between Government and Meadow. Both those things have existing bike lanes, and it looks like the sort of as of right now, the traffic planning for the area preserves those bike lanes. And any street parking that is available on Government Street north of Eagle Run gets very saturated with the residential folks that live there. So there is, generally speaking, little to no parking along that piece. And there isn't any street parking along Eagle Run Drive to the west of Government either. And I was wondering if anyone could speak to what consideration is sort of brought to the big picture around as residential density increases here and visitors come in, and there becomes some limitations to the parking in that commercially zoned property, how it will sort of work in our community when there isn't really any available street parking anywhere nearby, and we plan to preserve those bike lanes. And also related to that probably would create an incentive where people will want to sort of abuse the commercial parking in the commercial area, and that may in turn lead to sort of more monitoring, policing, or implementing paid parking, which would start to discourage a lot of the community hub spirit that this kind of corner of town or this particular set of properties tends to attract. So it'd be great if anyone could sort of share the thoughts towards the big picture of how this increase in density kind of plays into the lack of street parking around here and how we preserve that community hub feel.
I'll just ask if you've got any further comments, Mr. Bouchard, until before I turn things back to council.
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, any further questions? Okay, so we have the recommendation of staff in front of us. Councilor Stoner.
I will put forward the alternative staff recommendation that council not authorize DP number 530 and refer it back to staff with consideration of updating the parking traffic study and the fence requirements for the back property line.
Councilor Race, you're seconding that? Councilor Stoner, can I get you to be a little specific about your first reason the parking study in your comments?
Yeah, happy to clarify my motion there. So very much appreciate that this is not a rezoning, that the property is zoned for RM3. And despite the fact that we do need a diversity of housing forms in all of our neighborhoods, and I am generally supportive of that, I don't think that the provision of rental housing in this particular proposal as it's put forward is worth the trade-offs that we're seeing. And in part, that's because it is simply rental housing and not affordable housing, where we're seeing rental housing being built right now. We're seeing 1 bedroom, 1 bath coming in at $1,950 a month at rental. So it's not getting us closer to where we know we need to be on an affordability spectrum. And with regards to the parking variance in particular, I'm not supportive of it because I think that the parking study as was included misses the mark on a few things. So it was done mid-January, which we know is not the height of the demand for that particular lot. The cover photo of the traffic management or the parking study itself shows 9 vehicles parked on the site that is proposed for development. And yet there's no consideration for the impact that the development of this property is going to have on offsetting that current overflow parking. And so I just don't believe that there has been enough thought given to that specific parking variance. And if and when this comes back, I'd like that to be clarified. Thank you.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. And I was actually on council when this was initially zoned back in 2010. And at that time, the affordability in the rental housing crisis was not quite what it is today, a long shot. So these were just zoned for multifamily residential. No consideration was given to affordability at that point. So I don't take issue with the fact that they're market rental, but I do think we want to be careful that we don't make them unaffordable nevertheless, or even less affordable. I have a concern with the requirement of the condition about using gas, or not using gas rather, to heat and energize the place. I understand that. I understand where that's coming from, and I can see how that would fit some people's agendas. But the other thing that occurs to me is the affordability. And everything I hear, and I haven't actually done a detailed study on it, electricity is significantly more expensive than gas. So there is a trade-off, and I think rather than make it a condition of a development permit, which to me is a form of penalty. And every time we've talked about bringing along climate action matters, we've looked for incentives. And there's a difference to me between an incentive and a penalty. And here what we're saying when we put a condition like that on the DP is that you either do this or you don't get your development permit. That to me is a penalty. And so I think what we want to do, if we want to go forward, I think first of all, we need as a council a discussion around this point. We should consider amending the guidelines for the ACP to allow for that. So there is some clarity. We understand the trade-off of the council. We haven't debated that. And we can give some certainty to the development community. But I am supporting this motion because I am also concerned about the parking. And I can understand the variance of a few and before, I have no specific number in mind, but a variance of 20, which is fully a third, which is a third of the parking requirement, to me is too much. And I think we're all familiar with the site and have probably all been there many times. And I can be in there at 8 o'clock in the morning and the parking lot is significantly full. I don't quite believe the parking study. It's as simple as that. And I have a concern about how accurate it is, how it will be affect different times of the day. And I'm also concerned about, one of the new trends now is more people working at home. So we can't guarantee that all the cars are going to leave in the morning and not come back until night. I think our society is now just a little bit more unpredictable and complex.
Councilor Rice, can you sit back a little bit, see if we can improve your audio?
Oh, sorry. Okay. And is that better?
Yeah.
So I am concerned about that. I'm also concerned about the effect it will have on the adjoining property, which, while I understand is owned by the same person, that's not a guarantee into the future. And also, it will inevitably, in my mind, affect the development, the redevelopment of the adjoining property, and particularly the amount of commercial that might be able to be supported there, and it will restrict that. And so I think that sort of goes against certain goals we have for neighborhood hubs. And for that reason, I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you, Councilor Rice. I saw Councilor Pettingill's hand.
Yeah, and I'm actually not supportive of this resolution. I appreciate the developer's commitment to the public art and the fence. I think, to my fellow councilor's point, we have a community climate action plan which lays out a very aggressive emissions reduction target for us to meet. Even with that, it acknowledges we're significantly short of the goal we need to meet, and it acknowledges that we're not yet counting embedded carbon and other things. So I think it's absolutely critical that we get away from fossil fuel in our buildings, and I was very pleased to see that here. I think affordability is an issue, but we also know that simple market rental is a significant issue, and so I think seeing market rental here is really important. The other piece, and I'll maybe speak to it at the end of the meeting, was just in a session on autonomous vehicles in the corridor and the impacts of that. And I think we really can't afford to be planning new developments where everyone has 2 or 3 vehicles and where our neighborhood hubs are vehicle dependent hubs. I think we really have to figure out a way that our developments are not planned around cars, and our land and quality of life is not planned around cars. And so I actually am, we may not have the numbers exactly right, but I think if we are doing things right, generally as a community, the parking problems we have today will diminish. I think in a lot of times when people are concerned about parking, there's an assumption that's more people, more cars. But as we get more people, we actually have to get less cars. And with the technologies and the other things that are coming on board, that is, I think, the direction we are heading in the next 5 to 10 years. And so I appreciate that. And I also, I understand some of the concern about what this will do for flexibility, but when I think about what we need to do to support livability and walkability and so on, I don't think we want to incentivize and accommodate and facilitate car-dependent businesses in particular. So I'm happy that this will be a site that will be most accommodating to to businesses that aren't so car-dependent in the future. And so I think that makes sense. So I'm not sure how this motion is going to go, but I in general, appreciate what I've seen with this proposal.
Thank you, Councilor Pettingill. Councilor Anderson?
If I may, Chair, I'd like to make an initial comment on the developers' I think, sincere commitment to public art. And I just wanted to make a general comment on this. This site is the location of the largest hop farm ever in the valley. And it's a foundational industry both for the development of the valley, but it's also of enormous significance for First Nations community in this region. Not only right across the road at CHM Reserve, all of those families worked on that hop farm and were part of its existence for a generation, but also folks in Mount Currie who came down here, and there's many pictures of this. So I just want to make the general comment that this is a cultural feature of the site that might merit some consideration as we think about public art and context for it. As regards to parking, about 8 years ago, I was part of a Squamish CAN team that looked at this precinct as a de facto park and ride area. And at the time, we were concerned to raise the issue with the district that parking and park and ride usage of this lot was something that needed a look at. And we looked at other sites as well. Of course, it's private property, and so are other de facto park and ride sites in the valley. But that impression I received at that time and the picture I've built up since, I am very concerned about the parking implications here. And I think I'm a little bit skeptical about where we're going with this, and I want to see a lot more assurance as to the outcomes for parking in the neighborhood. I'm also concerned about the congestion and safety on Government Road with this extra entrance egress, and I do respect the staff has pointed out of the strategy with the access to the suites around the other side. But nonetheless, this is an area with our tourist venues not so far away where there's a lot of traffic and unfamiliar traffic on this road. So I am concerned about the congestion at that new intersection that will be proposed. Moving to the setbacks, I am uncomfortable with the scale of this building. And the setback issue is something I can't support, and I really am wanting to just state that I think it's just a reflective of an issue of building scale and massing that I'm just not comfortable with. Considering these two variances, the open space setback and the parking, considering them together, I'm in support of Councillor Stoner's resolution. I'd like to see this go back to staff. It seems to me, more generally, neighborhood nodes are going to be varied. They'll have different circumstances, and we should think about what functions we want for neighborhood nodes. What are we looking for? What ones do we value? Considering the outcomes for the whole neighborhood node objectives and values ledger for this neighborhood, I think there's some general policy issues that arise that we have to look at carefully the next time around and for policy, zoning, and OCP. So I won't be supporting the two variances as they are. I will be in support, in summary, of Councillor Stoner's motion to have a second look at this package. Thank you.
Councillor French.
Thank you. I think we need to be realistic about parking, not just at this project, but other developments. One just needs to travel down Government Road, where we have some new development, or a new development under construction nearing completion, and see the parking situation there, and cruise through Eagle Winds. Very few people seem to put their vehicles in their garage. I'm guessing a lot of those garages are full of stand-up paddleboards and kiteboard equipment and mountain bikes, and the list goes on. So I'd also like to see this come back to us with some firm commitment to public art, in light of the fact that the proponent has indicated a commitment to that anyway. So I'm going to be supporting this motion to send it back to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I really like the building, and I'm okay with the usable open space variance, the design criteria variance. I think, I am both in agreement with Councillor Pettengill that we, I think, put too much in terms of where we'll be in the future on creating parking today. Like, we have investments in transit to make. We are working hard on matching jobs to the people that live here. But I do think the parking variance deserves a closer look. And one thing, Mr. Daly, is you started your presentation by saying this is the lot that is the overflow parking for the adjacent lot. And that's how you started. I don't know if you noticed that or not, but and as Councillor Stoner points out, the cover sheet of the parking study shows 9 cars sitting on this particular lot. I think we do have to be careful about, being able to show to council that we have considered this idea of neighborhood hubs and how we contemplate that use. The uses for C1 zone are quite varied and would require some parking that could conflict with what we're putting in to accommodate the rental housing next door. So I think it does deserve another close look. It's also an opportunity to clarify the fencing and the public art and that sort of thing. But I'm generally supportive of the building and how it looks and how it meets the DP area guidelines. But I will support sending this back to staff for just another close look at parking and whether 20 is really the variance that we want here in order to protect our ability to build out a neighborhood hub in that area. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Pettengill opposes. Motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Thank you to the public and the proponent for joining us electronically this evening. We really appreciate your participation that way. Okay, we are on to, oh, actually, let's take a break. We'll come back at 1:45. That will give us an opportunity to get Councillor Herford back on the line and give everyone a chance to stretch their legs. So we're in recess until 1:45. Okay, we're back in our special business meeting for Tuesday, October 6th. Welcome back, Councillor Herford. I hope you had a nice break. We are now on 9A2 because 9A1 was the housing agreement that accompanied the DP 530, and since we have sent that back to staff, that will come back to us with that DP once again. So we're on to item 2, which is our District of Squamish 2021 permissive tax exemption bylaw. This is a 1-year bylaw number 2772. I don't believe we're getting a presentation on this, or are we? Are we, Lynn?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do not have a presentation on this. If you would like me to introduce the bylaws, I can do that, or we could just move ahead.
Council, do you need them to be introduced, or are you okay to proceed? We're okay to proceed? All right, so I know a couple of councillors have a conflict on the last one, so we'll go in order. Does someone want to move first 3 readings of bylaw number 2772, 2020? Let's move by Councillor Pettengill, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The next is a permissive tax exemption bylaw for 5 years, number 2773, that this be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, the permissive tax exemption bylaw for 2 years, number 2780, 2020, be given first 3 readings. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The last one. Councillor Anderson.
I'd like to declare a conflict on this one, as I am a member of an affiliate private club, an affiliate of the Golf and Country Club, that is. So I'll be needing to recuse myself from this one.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. I'm also declaring a conflict and have before. I'm a member of the Squash Club, which is also part of the same tax-paying entity. And so will be financially impacted by this. Thank you.
Okay. If you can disconnect, and we will text you when you can come back on or call. Okay, they're gone. So, District of Squamish 2020 permissive tax exemption bylaw for 1 year for the Squamish Valley Golf and Country Club number 2784, 2020 be given first 3 readings. I will move that, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We should have just had them count to like 20. There. Okay, we've got Councillor Anderson joining. I know we have quorum, but I also know that Councillor Race voted against one of these bylaws, so I do want to give him an opportunity to reconnect. He's halfway there. Okay. Oh, there he is. Welcome back, Councillor Race. Next time be a little speedier, maybe. Okay, we are on to section 9B, adoption. So we have a number of bylaws that are up for adoption that were related to our zoning bylaw phase 1 update. So we do have to do all of these separately, correct? Yes, every single one. Okay, so here we go. First up, this is section A, the rezoning of large greenfield properties zoned RS1 to multiple unit residential RM5. The District of Squamish official community plan bylaw number 2500, 2017, amendment bylaw RS1 parcels number 2731, 2020 be adopted. Someone like move that. That is moved by Councillor Stoner. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Race and Councillor Anderson and Councillor French opposed. Motion carries. Next up, the District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200, 2011, amendment bylaw for multiple unit residential RM5 number 2742, 2020 be adopted. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Pettengill, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We did get MOTI approval on our outstanding bylaws, so next up is District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw for Newport Ridge parcel number 2718, 2020 be adopted. Their mover. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Race, Councillor Anderson opposed. Motion carries. Next up, bylaw number 2200, 2011, amendment bylaw for North Crumpet parcel number 2722, 2020 be adopted. I will move that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Section B, rezoning unsurveyed crown land and private land outside the growth management boundary from RS1 to park, recreation, and institutional use, T3, and Resource RE. First bylaw up for adoption is District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw unsurveyed Crown Park, number 2739, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw unsurveyed Crown Resource number 2738, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by, come on gang, let's play here. Thank you, Councillor French. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw Valley Cliff Resource bylaw number 2737, 2020 be adopted. That is moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We're on to section C, rezoning parcel off Aspen Road from multiple unit residential RM2 to neighborhood node commercial C13. First up is the official community plan bylaw amendment for Aspen East, number 2740, 2020, be adopted. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Related to this, District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw for neighborhood node commercial C13, number 2734, 2020 be adopted. I will move that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw for the Aspen Road parcel number 2723, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Into section D, this is to amend land use designations for select high flood hazard parcels subject to from parks, greenway corridors, and recreation to agriculture and rezone to agricultural 3. So first up is the official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw for 1050 Laramie Road and 1050 Depot Road, number 2746, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Race. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw for agricultural 3, number 2721, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Friend, seconded by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, District of Squamish zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw for 1050 Depot Road, number 2724, 2020 be adopted. I will move that. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw for 1000 Laramie Road, number 2725, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw for 1050 Laramie Road, number 2726, 2020 be adopted. By Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Herford. In favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Section E, rezone RE parcel along Highway 99 to Highway 99 Ecotourism C12. So this is for the District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw, Highway 99 Ecotourism number 2727, 2020 be adopted. By Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Anderson and Councillor French opposed. Motion carries. Pardon me? 2743. Oh, sorry. Yep. Going backwards into section D. Apologies, Council. just where the page cut happened, I missed one. This is for the District of Squamish Land Use Contract Termination Bylaw for 1000 and 1050 Laramie Road. That the Land Use Contract Termination Bylaw number 2743 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for catching that. On to Section G, amend zoning of large C4 properties. First up is the official community plan bylaw amendment C4 parcels number 2733, 2020 be adopted. That is moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Race. Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up, zoning bylaw amendment bylaw for 1301 to 1347 Pemberton Avenue. This is the Chieftain Center, number 2729, 2020 be adopted. That's moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Then last one in that section is Squamish zoning bylaw amendment for 1200 Hunter Place, Squamish Station, number 2730, 2020 be adopted. That is moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Section H. These are amendments to allocate university housing units to the UH1 zone. First up is the amendment to the District of Squamish Official Community Plan. This is amendment bylaw University Area Policy Amendments number 2732, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And following up on that, District of Squamish zoning bylaw amendment bylaw for the University Area Amendments number 2720, 2020 be adopted. That's moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, Section I is rezone undeveloped C9 parcels along Highway 99 to Highway Adventure Commercial C11. The first bylaw is the official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw for large format retail to number 2747, 2020 be adopted. I will move that. It is seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And finally, District of Squamish zoning bylaw amendment bylaw Adventure Highway Commercial Zone C11 for 39300 Discovery Way. This is bylaw number 2728, 2020 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff. Okay, we're on to item 10, staff reports. First is from Corporate Services around bylaw appointments. The staff recommendations is that Council appoint Mark Colson and Johnny Tomatis, thank you, as District of Squamish bylaw officers. And that, can I do these together? And that Council appoint Laura Lazaridis and Sarah Kennedy as District of Squamish Community Patrol officers. Is there any questions before that is moved? Maybe for the benefit of the public, Ms. Goldbeck, is the difference between a bylaw officer and a community patrol officer?
Hi, Natasha Goldbeck, GM Community Services. A community patrol officer is responsible for being essentially the eyes and ears of the bylaw enforcement officers, and the bylaw enforcement officers have the authority to write tickets. That's the primary difference.
Thank you. Councillor Pettengill?
And just so I can clarify, this is a staff hiring decision and just the legislation requires council to endorse it, but this is essentially a staff hiring thing. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. Thanks.
Do you want to move that, Councillor Pettengill? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. Any further comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10B under Community Services is the Community Grant Policy. We have a recommendation from Committee of the Whole from September 29th that Council approve the updated Community Grant Policy at the special business meeting on October 6th with the inclusion of social inclusion and environmental stewardship language to the bullet points in 1.3C, the inclusion of OCP definitions to bullet 1.2A, and reference to OCP goals in bullet 2.2D. Ms. Digger did attach the report to our agenda or the policy, and if there's questions, I will take them, unless you have a presentation, Ms. Digger, but do you?
Thank you, Chair. I do have some slides prepared, but in the interest of Council's time, I'm happy to forego the slides.
Council, do you want to see the presentation? Not. I think people just have questions.
Okay, happy to hear the questions too.
Councilor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I just wanted to ask Ms. Digger what our communications has been with the nonprofit community in terms of this transition. Typically, community grants are due October 1st. So I just want to make sure that we are doing adequate communication with that with those community groups. Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Stoner, for your question. We have been receiving inquiries regarding our process, and we have been updating the community as we've gone along. Because we didn't really have a clear picture until last council meeting, we weren't able to put anything really succinct out, but it is our intention, once the policy is adopted by council, to communicate more thoroughly with the community. And again, when the community grant organizations have their programs up and running in the new year, we'll help to communicate that message again out to the community to make sure that they're aware of those granting opportunities.
Thank you. Councillor Herford, did I see your hand? No. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Pengill.
So just regarding that response, in terms of receiving grant monies, are many organizations looking at delays in, I guess we say, you know, people shouldn't count on this and we don't want to sort of create a dependence on it in the first place. But, you know, if community groups are watching our normal schedule, are we going to be a little bit behind this year?
Thank you, Councillor Pettingill. Through the chair, we are operating on a different schedule, definitely this year. However, council's decision, I believe, is usually made in November, and those monies don't get issued until the new year, until for this year, it would be until 2021. The arts community have been receiving grants via the Arts Council in previous years, and they've been operating on this same schedule. So it will be a little bit of a shift for other community groups, but they will still be receiving, if successful in their application, funding within the same fiscal year. So hopefully there isn't a huge impact on their operations.
Any other questions? You're moving that, Councillor Stoner? Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Herford. Any further comments? I think this is an important move to streamline our budgeting process and put good decision-making policy into the hands of our community organizations who have more experience in granting these types of things, and still aligning that to our OCP. It makes a lot of sense, and hopefully the monies can be leveraged even further to have a greater impact in the community. So thanks for your work on this. Councillor Stoner, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just also going to thank staff for their work on this. I think that this is a really exciting move on our part to make the granting process more efficient and still align with our OCP objectives. And I was really encouraged to hear from Ms. Dicker that this may have a little bit of a hiccup in the timing, but there will still be funding flowing in the 2021 fiscal year. So hopefully that provides a little bit of comfort to the nonprofits in our community. But thanks to staff for your work on this. Thanks.
Councillor Pettingill?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to staff. I'm looking forward to this as well. With the other process, I had concerns about alignment with our OCP, so I'm glad to see that covered in the policy, and I'm also looking forward to the some of the more in-depth criteria for scoring some of these grants. I think some of those things will really help this process. So thank you.
Thank you. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to community planning and infrastructure. First up is the Valley Cliff Fire Hall and EOC building sustainability performance. And I'm handing it over to Mr. Bragg. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Cal Bragg, the Director of Facilities Planning and Construction. Just before Jesse jumps into the details and the lead here, I just wanted to give a quick update to Mayor and Council on the fire hall build. I'm just going to steal 1.5 minutes of your time here to just to give a quick update. On the temporary fire hall, I'm sure many of you have driven past it. On the schedule side, we're on time right now, which is great. We're actually slightly ahead of time. We're at lockup and the final move across is happening in mid-November. So on the time side, it's good. On the budget side, we're slightly over the main budget, but well within contingencies, so we're within budget. Overall, the temporary fire hall's been it's a pretty straightforward build. It's a kickoff for the Real Estate Facilities Master Plan platform, and it's a first build for this project team that we've got going now between the district, the architects, the builder, and the consultants. And this is going to be a litmus test for the Valley Cliff Fire Hall because it's the same project team who we move into the larger project here. So on the Valley Cliff main fire hall side, on the scheduling, we're on time. Currently, we're working through the tender process. Some of the key milestones we'll be getting on site shortly. Demolition is due to start about mid-December. We'll see how we go here with the tendering timing. On the budget, we're slightly above early estimates, which is not unexpected, but the project team's in the process of working down. We're comfortable. We're within budget right now. Pricing won't be locked off until another couple of months here, probably about mid-December. But overall, on both projects, we've got good momentum. We're just finally up the detailed design on the Valley Cliff, and we're prepping for the construction phase. But all in all, with no major hurdles, and we're on track here. So over to you, Jesse, if there's no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bragg. Mr. Morwood.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen here, so just 1 second, please. There we go. Good evening. My name is Jesse Morwood. I'm the Capital Projects Manager for the District of Squamish. Tonight I'm presenting on the Valley Cliff Fire Hall and EOC Building Sustainability Performance. The resolution that we're looking for is that the District of Squamish continues to pursue the base case building sustainability performance for the fire hall and not pursue LEED certification. So I just want to provide a quick background just to refresh Council's memory. In early this year, the Council passed the following resolutions that we would pursue the base case scenario, which I'll explain what that is in a second, and that we would pursue LEED certification. So what is the base case? Effectively, this is the new fire hall in EOC is going to be an all-electric powered building. This means low CO2 equivalents. Looking at that image on the right side of your screen, compared to natural gas, the carbon emissions are significantly lower for an electrical system, and that's because our system is based on hydroelectricity, which is comparatively a very clean energy source. The building's also going to exceed the BC Building Code envelope requirements. We're going to use air-to-water source heat pumps, and this construction is going to be predominantly wood and steel construction, which lowers the embodied carbon footprint of the building. So why did we originally pursue LEED? It provided us, basically LEED is kind of independent verification that the building was designed and constructed, following 5 main areas. At the beginning of this project, we hadn't built a facility in quite some time. And so what I think LEED kind of helped us do was provide a framework for what we wanted to target as in this building. Certainly, carbon emissions was high on our list, but a lot of the other kind of periphery, more holistic kind of stuff, we didn't have a strong idea how we were going to pursue that, and LEED really gave us that framework. So it was really useful initially. Again, it's kind of more of a holistic approach than just looking at carbon emissions or energy. It looks at those other sustainability site development, water conservation, material indoor environments, for example. It also provides accountability. So this is it's a third-party commissioning. An agent of LEED actually commissions this building as LEED certified or not. So it provided that kind of third-party reporting and accountability, which we felt was important. Moving on, so this is just a kind of a spreadsheet of what the LEED scorecard, if you will, looks like. We were aiming for LEED Gold at approximately 64 points. There is a platinum level beyond that, so we were kind of going for a high level of LEED, but not certainly not the top. So what's changed? Why aren't we looking at pursuing LEED anymore? First of all, when I went to council in early January, I told council that the estimates was the maximum was going to be about $200,000. Since then, we've gone and gotten quotes from consultants and contractors, and the initial quotes we received is actually beyond $200,000. So at that point, we really kind of took pause and reviewed whether this was going to be worth it. We felt this was going to be worth it for us or not. As I kind of dug more into this and talked to the contractor that was on board, and so other people in the industry, what I learned was that a lot of projects see cost escalation, price escalation with LEED. And part of that problem is going back to the scorecard is that we're estimating that we're going to get 64 points. But that third-party commissioner may come in and say, well, we're not going to give you some points for this, in which case now you're chasing the points. And chasing the point means that you're increasing the points elsewhere, and that effectively costs money. So projects, some of the contacts and people I talked to had that experience of the cost actually was increased beyond the original estimate. Thirdly, there are always budget constraints and pressures, and Mr. Bragg kind of mentioned that there is some pressures there right now. I think we're always looking for ways to save money and making sure that the money we're spending is effective, and that and if there's opportunities to reduce costs, we're going to certainly look at it. So Mr. Bragg is certainly doing as best he can with what he's given, but there are pressures there, and I think this is worth looking at. The last point I want to make is that there is a lot of reporting with LEED. There's reporting from the initial consultants, from the contractors, the designer reviewing all the submissions, and then the third-party LEED commissioner as well. And my impression was there's a lot of reporting, and we built in a lot of these infrastructure into the design, so it's incorporated. And it felt like there was a way to save money without doing all that, spending all that extra money, and still getting the same product, which is what we want at the end of the day. So what we did is we developed our own kind of framework and spreadsheet. So if we don't pursue DD, we kind of said, well, what is this going to look like? And the reality is it looks very similar to if we pursued LEED. The reason being is that we're still following the base case, which is focusing on energy, low carbon emissions, improved building envelope. So really, it's a very similar system. In fact, we've borrowed some of the criteria and targets from LEED itself and kind of built our own spreadsheet. As well, this involves a kind of an implementation stage and way to track how we're achieving this throughout this process. So we feel we've kind of dealt with the kind of that we have our own framework. We don't need LEED to have a framework. We felt like we kind of have this holistic approach still. That chart I didn't go into details. But what about the accountability piece to it? Can we still be accountable without LEED? One of the initial things we did was reviewed all our targets against CCAP, which is the Community Climate Action Program, and specifically, the big moves within that. CCAP came in after the fact, after we already have been designing this building, but effectively we feel that we're meeting the strategies, policies, and goals of CCAP. The main big move was construct better buildings. The vision was energy efficiency and use low carbon energy, which is what we're certainly doing, as well as hitting a lot of the other targets in CCAP. We're still proposing to do. We've still done a lot of the modeling and calculations already that are above and beyond, and that includes energy emissions, water consumption. Energy emissions and water consumption. We're still proposing to do additional testing. I think one of the main ones is the mid-construction air tightness, which is in CCAP and is certainly above and beyond what the building code requires. Lastly, we're still planning on reviewing a lot of the submissions to make sure that we're hitting our targets and focusing on what's important. For example, the waste diversion, accomplishing at least 75% waste diversion. And that specifically largely refers to the demolition of the existing building. What we would do is we would produce a final report summarizing all these targets, the processes we went to, and how we achieved them at the end of the day. We would present this to council, certainly at council's request. Yes. So there still is a cost associated with this. We're not suggesting that if we don't pursue LEED, we're going to save $200,000. What we're saying is that we can reduce a lot of the extra reporting and third-party consultants and do a lot of the modeling calculations, reviews, testing ourselves. And we're estimating this to be at about $75,000, which is obviously a big difference between the greater than $200,000 with following. This brings me to the resolution that the District of Squamish continues to pursue the base case for the fire hall and not pursue the LEED certification. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morwood. Councillor Rees, I just need to step out for a couple of minutes. Can I get you to chair the Q&A?
Good staff, put all the councillors up on my screen or on the screen so I can see it.
Staff will have to finish off so that Councillor Rees can see. Does that help? If you put view, if you go to the top and you go to view, you say hide non-video participants at the bottom, you will see all the council. At the very bottom of it.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
And then you see all the council. And then, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay, we've got everybody. So the first hand I have up is Councillor French. Further, and then Councillor Herford, Councillor Stoner. So we'll start with that. Go ahead, Councillor French, and Councillor Pettengill.
There was an acronym that I didn't recognize. What is HCMA?
Yeah, through the chair, apologies. HCMA is our architect, our lead architect, and so they help. They were the lead in designing the building and also would review a lot of the submissions.
Very good, thank you.
Councillor Herford, then Stoner, and Pettengill.
Thank you. When we were presented with the option to pursue LEED, the accountability I thought was quite an important piece of it. So I appreciate your going in depth on how we'll cover that off. But I am curious around mentioning the points chasing, I think is how it was stated in the sort of the implications to the budget. If we are finding that we're behind and not meeting the performance, wouldn't we run into the same problem rather than just documenting what's there as far as identifying challenges and needing to potentially make changes to the or revisit pieces of the build, and it doesn't feel like that piece is accounted for in the 75,000 number, or maybe I'm not quite linking those together correctly. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, through the chair. Excellent question. Yeah, I think the difference is there is a risk that the cost will be more than $75,000. I think that's a fair comment. I think the difference is that if there's a challenge, for example, with the air tightness in our mid-construction testing, that's really important, and that's something that we want to pursue and make sure we get right. However, if say we were following lead and there's we're not able to get something that's less important, that means that we may have to be chasing something else that's not important to the district. So I think what I'm saying is that without following lead, we're able to chase what's really important to the district and spend money on the fire hall. That's important. Whereas in lead, I think there's a risk that you're going to be chasing points and spending money on things that are less important to the district. And I will, if Mr. Bragg wants to comment, feel free as well.
Yeah, Mr. Morwood, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Again, with air sealing a building, when you have lead numbers to hit and you miss certain items, to try and fix air seals, it's very, very difficult. There's ways to chase lead points that are unnecessary, and I think I basically second what you're saying. It gives us focus on what really matters to the district here.
Next, Councillor Herford. What, Councillor Stoner then?
I'll leave it.
Sorry.
I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'm curious if staff have considered or reviewed project eligibility for funding streams, in particular the Clean BC Communities Fund.
Yes, through the chair. Thanks for that question, Councillor Stoner. We have. We looked into the Clean BC Communities Fund and found it was ineligible for fire halls, unfortunately, because it's an emergency services. We have, however, targeted both municipality, provincial and federal grants. We're in the process of looking at one through the FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And we're working with the consultants now to see how relevant our project is for us to target that grant. So grants are high up on our priority list for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that, and thanks for the update on pursuing those grants. If we were eligible for a grant further down the road, is there the opportunity to go back to lead certification, or is this kind of like a one and done deal?
I think it's a one and done deal. However, on that, I'll give you an example. One that we're chasing is a capital project, stormwater quality project. And what we can do, we can implement items that are more specific to the project, again, as opposed to doing a blanket lead. So I think this is basically more of a one and done deal that we'll say, okay, leads, we've moved on from it. And we're going to be targeting other areas. And in particular, some of these grants actually do help with the community climate action plan as well. Like it's a little bit more relevant, the lead, particularly this one, the stormwater one. If we can chase this one, would be great.
Okay. Before I hand the chair over, it was Councillor Pettingill is on the list and nobody be following. Back to you, Mayor Miller.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rice. Councillor Pettingill?
Yes, thank you. Can we just get a concrete example of something in lead that's not important or not so important?
Through the chair, thanks for the question. Sorry, I'll just pull up the scorecard. Yeah, for clarification, through the mayor, like I said, I think there's a lot of good things in lead. I think it's a holistic system. With our introduced framework, our proposed framework, there's very little that's different. We're not taking out any of the main stuff. some of the stuff around landscaping, I don't think is as important. Some of the site development stuff is less important, I think. For example, sorry, Mr. Bragg, do you have any?
Yeah, I can't. I mean, I
there?
know more from the built green items where they target builders, for example, where the builder has to have, their fleet of vehicles has to have a certain amount of energy, whether they run on diesel, whether they run on gas, or they run on electric, how they waste paper bins internally in the office work and all that sort of stuff. It's kind of, they look at a very broad range of areas. Specifically for this one, though, I'm going to refer back to Jesse on this. I'm literally 6 weeks in on on this lead and trying to catch up on that certain area.
Sorry, that maybe a bit more concisely. As I said, I think the challenge with LEED is that there's a lot of costs associated with it. I think that the district needs to consider whether there's enough value pursuing that. There's cost for the certification. There's costs for the reporting. There's costs for the commissioning, and I feel that we can still achieve the intent and our targets without actually pursuing LEED certification. So again, I think our output is very similar, but it wouldn't be LEED certified.
Okay, thank you. If I can continue, with the estimates so far, then we estimated 200,000 for LEED or up to that much. We're looking at 75,000 now, so that leaves $125,000 in theory. Are we, in our minds at least, allocating that for other sustainability or CCAP tasks, like maybe solar energy infrastructure on Brennan Park or our next affordable housing project, things that will bring down energy costs and emissions in other buildings?
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head there. I think that, we've got we've got a large platform to push out over the next 5 years under the Real Estate Facilities Master Plan. And environmental and climate is such a forefront item. If we target all the costs into one of the particular buildings, we've only got so much to put in the pot to put to the other future buildings. So to answer your question, yes, 100% climate. And the environmental side for all our buildings is foremost, and it just comes down to budgets at the end of the day at some point, and particularly on this build, it's an expensive build as it is, and if we can reallocate some of these funds that we've reduced from the 200 to other buildings, we'll definitely do so.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, what's council's pleasure? Councilor Anderson?
Move the recommendation, please.
Seconded by Councilor French. Any further comments? Go ahead, Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I actually suggested this, I suggested the idea of defining our own sustainability performance criteria. Last time we discussed the building, I believe June or July, with the presence of the architect from HCMA. And I found the rationale that was provided at that time to be acceptable. I understood it, but here we have the costs that have come forward. Cost escalation on LEED building, we have notorious examples not so far away. And I think that we are still aiming high in terms of sustainability performance with this building. Looking at the Big Move 5 in our Community Climate Action Plan, supporting building materials that store carbon. This is essentially an innovative building. As a fire hall, we have an innovative application of a still relatively new strategy in mass timber. Awareness is building of that Big Move 5 that we've highlighted in our Climate Action Plan, and that the understanding of it and appreciation of it is only growing. In fact, I look forward to this building being featured on a fine poster at the 2022 or 2023 Wood Solutions Fair in Vancouver. So I'm happy to go along with staff's recommendation on this strategy.
Councilor Pettengill and then Councilor Stoner.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to support this. I think I did raise the question to make sure that this was the best use of our money pursuing LEED, and I think staff have hit the nail on the head. The most important thing is getting our emissions down. And so as long as we still have decent accountability and we're hitting that, I will be happy. The one thing I was debating with myself is whether to add a little bit to this resolution just to clarify very explicitly that we're still committed to a 100% green renewable or hydro energy building. You can see that in the report, but I think some of the messaging is important, and wondered if that clarity right in the resolution was useful. But I think for now I will stand down on that unless I get some encouragement from my colleagues. But I appreciate the thought and the decision here.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner?
Thanks so much to staff for bringing this forward. It's never a simple decision, but it does come down to budgets. I'm happy to support this motion. As somebody who's worked in the eco-certification space for over a decade, LEED is not the only one that is troubled by the escalating costs and this concept of chasing points and spending dollars simply to get to that certification standard. And that's not what I think we want to see us get into. I think the process and the accountability components are the most important here. And so appreciate staff's willingness to do the final report, but I'd also urge us to, wherever we can, start public reporting on performance metrics of these buildings, especially the ones that we're building, and just trying to elevate that bar from our standpoint in our buildings, that this is the work that we're doing and these are the goals, that the targets that we are achieving in our own builds, and creating kind of that public repository of self-reporting and encouraging others to come along with us on that. So I'm happy to support this motion and look forward to that accountability factor. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Herford?
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion. I'm looking forward to seeing this new high-performance building operating greenly. And performance reports, I look forward to seeing it, and I expect us to have a higher performance building than the certification chasing sort of would have led us to. So I appreciate that rationale, and although I do think that 75,000 number is not probably going to cost escalate from there, but anyways, be that as it may, I think this is the correct path for this building at this point. Thank you.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you. And I'll also be supporting this, I think, for the reasons given. And I think, LEED certification, I think, is a two-edged sword. And I think that's been pointed out. And I think the most important thing is to get the value for our money and as little money as possible. So I'm supportive of this resolution.
Thank you, Councillor Race. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your work, staff, on this. Council, do you want another little break before we do the DP? Would that be helpful, or how about a 5-minute break? A little 5-minute stretch? Okay, we'll come back at 1:15 then. Okay, we are live again. Welcome back to our special business meeting. We are on item 10C2. So this is for development permit number 507 for 39399 and 39449 Queensway. This is the Summit Industrial Warehouse, and I will turn it over to Ms. Fletcher. Welcome.
Thank you. Just going to share my screen. All right, so good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie Fletcher, planner with the District of Squamish, and tonight I'll be presenting development permit number 507, located at 39399 and 39449 Queensway. So this development application seeks to allow for the construction of 2 light industrial buildings on a cleared, disturbed site located at the northern end of the Sea to Sky Business Park. The OCP land use designation is industrial business. The site is zoned I-11, which accommodates a range of industrial uses. The site is within Development Permit Area 3, the universal guidelines, which were established to regulate the form and character of new development in Squamish. The site is also within Development Permit Area 2, and that's protection from flood hazard. And I'm not moving my slides. The subject property is zoned I-11, as are adjacent properties to the north, west, and south. Properties to the east are zoned I-8, specialized industrial business. The properties to the north are used as trade contractor facilities and light industrial storage, while the property to the west is undeveloped. The property to the south has an approved development permit for 2 new light industrial buildings. The properties to the east are developed with light industrial buildings comprising a range of uses, including personal storage, business and professional office, alcohol beverage manufacturing, and fitness center. So here's the proposed site plan, as well as the uses that are permitted on these 2 properties. 1 vehicle access is provided off of Queensway. All loading takes place at the northwest portion of the site to allow for truck turning. Pedestrian access is provided off of Queensway and includes an accessible ramp up to the sidewalk. Principal on-site walkways are a minimum of 1.5 meters wide and provide continuous weather protection. The walkway along the eastern frontage of Building 1 is narrower at 1 meter, but is not intended as the principal access. Vehicle parking exceeds the minimum zoning requirements. 53 vehicle spaces are provided on site, which works out to 1.6 spaces per 100 square meters of gross floor area. Therefore, a mix of warehousing, storage, manufacturing service, or repair uses can be accommodated. 3 loading spaces are required, and 3 are provided, and a caretaker unit is included. The proposed development consists of 2 precast concrete industrial buildings. The buildings are both single-story with mezzanine space above. The unit demising is unknown at this time, but could allow for up to 21 individual units. Building tenants or businesses are unknown at this time. This slide shows the west and east elevations of Building 1, which include decorative ice axes along the Queensway frontage. The buildings are finished in 4 different shades of blue, which provide visual variety and depth to the building. Solid cedar planks provide an awning above each unit for the Queensway signage. The interior of the building features heavy timber framed canopies with black iron support rods. Glass insets between timber frame canopies provide continuous walkway coverage, protecting pedestrians from the elements. This slide shows Building 2 and the materials described so far, including multiple shades of blue, heavy timber, and a decorative ice axe. The east elevation of Building 2 is similar to Building 1, but with additional units, while the west elevation of Building 2 is more simple in form, but still units are differentiated through color choice. The proposed landscaping consists of drought-resistant landscaping where possible and a hardy mix of deciduous and coniferous plantings along Queensway, adding to the local plant diversity. A small seating area is proposed along the frontage, consisting of rock benches, boulders, and finished logs, which add animation to the Queensway frontage. Development permit number 507 was presented to the advisory design panel on February 20th, 2020, and again on July 16th. At the February meeting, the panel passed the following motion requesting that the project return after the applicant resolved the following recommendations, and that was adherence to the DPA 3 guidelines, examining parking, and to provide a complete package with lighting, signage, and material boards. Staff worked with the applicant to resolve these comments, detailed in Appendix A of your report this evening. DP 507 returned to ADP on July 16th, where ADP passed the following motion, that the panel supports the project as presented and would like the applicant to work with staff to resolve the following recommendations. And that recommendation was to confirm the location of the garbage structure and bike storage. The screen shows some differences in the treatment of form and character from the initial application following the first visit to ADP, including the addition of the ice axes and heavier signage above the door on the Queensway elevation. This slide highlights some further changes made by the applicant between ADP meetings. The parking has been refined and meets the bylaw. The accessible stalls are now more strategically placed and exceed the zoning bylaw minimums, meeting the guidelines set out by the CSA. The exterior bike stalls are covered and are now facing Queensway, whereas before they were facing the interior lot line, allowing for, and the reorientation allows for better surveillance. The waste room is enclosed and will conform to the wildlife attractant bylaw. The accessible walkway has been straightened and conforms to accessibility standards. The loading spaces have been straightened and room has been allotted on site for unloading. The project as proposed meets the objectives of Development Permit Area 3. Staff reviewed the project with an approach to balancing competing objectives of maximizing the developable area while ensuring the development has a positive impact on the public realm. The project meets the OCP policies listed here, including maximizing existing employment lands and protecting industrial opportunities. The proposal aligns with council priority areas listed here by maximizing the use of existing infrastructure and creating new employment space in Squamish. Development permit number 507 was posted at the district's development showcase. No requests for public information were received, and therefore a public information meeting was not held. No comments have been received. Prior to the meeting, staff received some questions from council, and we'll attempt to answer a few of them here. The first question was confirmation that the canopy was continuous, as it didn't appear so in the renderings. Staff confirmed that the canopy is continuous, that between the wood awnings that there are glass insets, which provide 1.93 meters of pedestrian protection above unit entries. The rendering close up to the top right of the slide shows the glass is represented by 4 gray lines, which can be difficult to see, but it is noted on the elevations. Additional questions included if staff could clarify when the determination for step code compliance is made. This is made when the applicant applies for a building permit. The energy step code, however, does not apply to F occupancies. That's low and medium hazard industrial occupancies. So while the applicant has indicated that they will be doing energy modeling to meet step 2, it is not a requirement. Staff further note that the caretaker suite, if it exceeds 70 square meters, will need to meet the energy step code for a residential unit less than 1,000 square meters. This is because of the larger size of the caretaker suite, and it's a bonus that's achieved through the zoning bylaw. Finally, the question was asked whether or not the bicycle and vehicle parking stalls would have access to EV charging. None of the vehicle stalls are proposed to have access to EV charging, as this is not a requirement of the zoning bylaw. There's no requirement in the zoning bylaw for standalone employment space to provide EV charging stations, as when the regulation was originally drafted, research indicated that the majority of vehicle charging was occurring within the home overnight or in stops during longer trips. However, 30% of the bicycle stalls will be required to be within 1 meter of an electrical outlet as per the zoning bylaw. Staff recommend that council authorize development permit number 507, subject to the registration of a flood covenant, consolidation of the 2 lots, and registration of a covenant on title securing the caretaker suite as meeting step 2 in the event that it is larger than 70 square meters. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. Council, do you have any questions? Councilor Herford.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. My question's around when you laid out the slide of the OCP policies that this proposal achieves, it kind of clicked for me that as far as protecting employment land and opportunities, with the joining of these 2 lots into the larger entity and thus this style of construction and this development shape, I wonder where the diversity of choices for our industrial lands come in, and how staff weighed that as they assessed this project.
Thank you for that question. It wasn't, the consolidation of the lots wasn't necessarily assessed during this project. As the owner owns both lots, it's their prerogative to come in for a development permit. The consolidation of the lots is a technical requirement for a building permit to be issued. So because they've already got the zoning and because they're owned by the same property, there would be no stopgap to prevent them from pursuing a development permit.
Okay then, thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Herford. Any other questions? Councilor Stoner.
This may be a little bit off topic, but I appreciate staff's consideration of the EV charging stations. I'm just curious when there might be an opportunity to bring back that component of the zoning bylaw. Recognize it's too late for this project.
I think I'll have to defer that question to Mr. Belinda.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I think that the next opportunity to discuss the EV charging requirements probably will be at phase 3 of the zoning bylaw update, which is scheduled for early next year.
Can staff speak to the stormwater management? There seemed to be a lot of description of this, which you don't usually see in DP. And I'm wondering, was there a problem with managing the stormwater runoff, or is there a particular challenge? And is this lot taking care of its stormwater within its own lot?
Through the mayor, the additional information regarding stormwater management came up between ADP meetings. So advisory design panels had questions about how they were going to account for stormwater and had it been integrated into their overall design. So the information that we've seen here meets the bylaw and is typically what we would see at servicing agreement, but it was provided earlier on to address some of ADP's concerns.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions, Council? Councilor French?
I'll move the staff recommendation if we're ready for that.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Herford. Any comments? Go ahead, Councilor French.
I think this project fits well into what we already have in that area, and I think that the developer and proponent have done a good job of evolving the project and taking an already good project and making it great.
Councilor Herford?
Thank you. It was refreshing to read a report where all the targets were exceeded rather than maybe barely met or struggling to achieve or asking for variance. So I'm very appreciative of that, and thank you to the staff and proponent for getting us to that location. It makes this project easy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Race, and then Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, and I will be supporting this. I think it's actually quite an attractive building, and I was happy to hear that it exceeded the parking requirements, because I've heard anecdotally of other developments in the business park which have met the bylaw and ended up with, in practical terms, not enough parking on their sites, which I know goes contrary to some of the other comments we've had this evening. But something else we might consider looking at in the zoning bylaw review is perhaps parking to make these buildings actually work as they're intended to work. So, but I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson, then Councilor Pettengill.
Thank you. First, I'd like to also comment on the attractiveness of the building, in particular the colors that are chosen for the facade. We see developers working with planning and in a dialogue around what is Squamish vernacular and how do we respond to it. And unfortunately, from my point of view, too often we have buildings, and although our policy statements do discuss an evolving Squamish vernacular, we have a lot of brown and beige buildings around town, and we do have a lot of rainy days. So I'm very happy to see a bright color, relatively bright color, featured in this building. I wanted also to compliment staff's attention to the issue of industrial land, and in a couple of ways. First of all, though, I think, and I have raised this before, and I do understand that it's not necessarily the place to bring this up in the report to council, but the adjacent land use designation to the west, that large property, is in fact not light industrial, it is medium. It is designated intensive industrial rather than industrial business. So medium versus light. And I just think that it's part of the context that we should be mindful of. And I just wanted to mention that, first of all. And secondly, and finally, on the industrial lands issue, I'm really pleased to see under the economy and local jobs a description here, which is reflecting our recent work and ongoing work on the employment lands studies that we're doing. And I think that this will be a good prompt to include this type of thing in the report, but I would like to mention one section. It states that priority subsectors who may be able to benefit from this new space include green building and construction technology. And I just wanted to point out, and this will be part of our evolving dialogue and observations on these things, that is unlikely to be the case. green building, construction technology that is manufacturing of building materials and building systems is really belonging to medium industrial. I've discussed this many times with different kinds of people in that business. These are not the spaces for them. They are the truck access, outdoor storage, and so on. There will be other kinds of manufacturers go on in spaces like this, but we need to be careful. We need to be more nuanced in our appreciation of who can go where. And this won't be the place for wood manufacturing or building materials manufacturing. There's just not enough space. It's another environment. So I just wanted to make that point as well, but also complement the presentation of that discussion that comes out of our employment space demand model. Thank you. I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Pango?
Thank you. I will be supporting the motion. I think this sort of space is particularly flexible and lends itself to our sector strategy. I did have a significant amount of anxiety when this first came, when I first read about this piece, thinking about our climate action plan, as aggressive as it is, that there are still gaps. And when I see a big industrial building where we're not addressing emissions, it's a concern. And I think I've seen the survey that we're doing right now, which is very residential focused. And I think we really need to be addressing industrial and commercial as well. So I look forward to the phase 3 when we can have a discussion about that. I do think that is a bit of a missed opportunity, and try as I might, I couldn't find because this is a development permit, a way to try and secure that. So recognizing we are where we are, I do appreciate the look and this general style of building. So I will be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor. I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We're on to item 10D1. This is the Can Export 2021 funding. Ms. Glende, who's present? Oh, Alicia Woodside's here from Economic Development. Welcome, Ms. Woodside.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen here. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So hello, Mayor and Council. My name's Alicia. I'm Economic Development Specialist here at the district, and this week I'm acting for Kate Mulligan. Adjust my screen so you see me. And today I'm presenting on the opportunity for Can Export community funding, which is a federal funding program. So about Can Export, it's a federal program, as I mentioned, and it's by Global Affairs Canada. And its objective is to increase Canadian communities' capacity to attract FDI into their communities and to increase employment opportunities. In the past, this was called a different name. It was called Invest Canada Community Initiatives. And under that previous program, our team had been successful for 3 previous years in obtaining that funding. And in the past, those applications were successful for us to pursue funding that actually helped us develop our emerging sector roadmap and action plan, and with some of the key data and research around that. So just for clarity, let's talk about what is FDI. And for the purposes of this funding program, it's talking about international businesses that may be expanding operations in Canada. And so it has to be from outside of Canada for this grant, not from within Canada. And so while this contribution is focused on foreign investment, we really want to leverage it as an opportunity to help support existing businesses and to help implement our emerging sector action plan. And we feel that the activities we can pursue with this grant will also help existing businesses with new tools and resources, and we can also attract new businesses to the region to help with local employment. So a few details about the grant. You can apply from anywhere between $3,000 and $500,000 in funding. And sorry, I keep calling it a grant, but it's actually a contribution agreement. So just to clarify there, projects must start and finish next year. And essentially it's a matching program. So the funding can reimburse up to 50% of eligible expenses. And I believe I attached in the report examples of eligible expenses, but essentially it funds things like website design and development, training, research, strategy, and marketing design. So our plan is to pursue this funding to help implement our emerging sector roadmap and action plan, and specifically around priority area 2 here. So we're already implementing priority area 1 right now. And so this funding opportunity would allow us to enhance and expedite the activities around priority area 2. And just as a refresh for those of you maybe listening in tonight that aren't familiar with the roadmap, the goal of the work is to facilitate a local business ecosystem that supports high-value local employment, reflective of our local workforce, and where the composition of the local economy is diverse and adaptable to changing conditions, and where local firms are supported by innovation, research, and development capacity, supportive infrastructure, and a positive business climate. So that's the plan for this funding program. And just to get a little bit more specific, we'd be looking to apply the Can Export funding to 3 specific areas. And so for one element of our plan, we'd be looking to develop new tools and resources to assist us in attracting and retaining our target sectors to Squamish. And we plan to create a priority sector focused microsite with digital tools and for the key sectors and collateral. And then as a second piece, we'd be looking to build our capacity to start pursuing a more proactive approach to lead generation in our target sectors. So this might include working to develop an ambassador program, leveraging some of our existing both internal and external partners, such as the economic leadership team, and that may be able to help us proactively attract certain sectors to Squamish, and developing a toolkit of resources and a hosting program for inbound leads that we're already receiving. And we also plan to enhance our knowledge in those key sectors with some sector-based training. And then finally, for the third piece, we're also planning strategic partnerships and business development. And so here we plan to identify key regional, provincial, and national agencies, as well as industry associations that are already working to attract these key sectors to the region and the province. And we want to work with those partners to educate them about Squamish and to work together in attracting those local sectors. So our proposed work plan totals $100,000, and we're requesting 50% from the Can Export funding contribution, and 50% is being requested in our 2021 special projects budget request. And so today we're looking for council support to apply for this funding program. However, if the district's 50% is not fully approved through the budget process for 2021, then we would decline the decline the contribution agreement, and we could scale our project accordingly using our existing project envelope. So an example of that is we could possibly pursue the website component and just limit the other activities that we have planned. So that's, and planning, as I mentioned, the funding application is due quite soon, so next week, and the implementation would have to occur next week. So our recommendation is that the District of Squamish authorize an application to the Can Export Community Investment Program to fund the implementation of the Emerging Sector Roadmap and Action Plan. And that concludes my presentation about CanExport. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Ms. Woodside? Go ahead, Councillor Anderson.
I really appreciate the methodical approach that's so obvious here. And I guess I do have a question and a comment. The question is for the Strategy 1 documenting clusters, and I'm looking at where are we at in time frame and in our work plan. My question is, end of 2020 is given as a goal deadline for implementing or following through with Strategy 1, documenting our clusters. Where are we at on that? What can we see about how we can reach that timeline? End of 2020 for documenting an initial ecosystem map and inventory clusters and create tools to promote collaborative updating. Is there a report pending this winter?
Yeah, through the mayor, we're actually going to be coming very shortly with invitations to sessions that will be driving those items forward. So that's on track right now. We've started the engagement process to engage with the local sectors and start mapping them out by engaging with our Economic Partner Forum and the Economic Leadership Team. And those meetings happened fairly recently in mid-September. And so we're going to be leveraging those groups as a basis to begin mapping the ecosystem. So we're planning right now for November as the kind of key time frame to be implementing those pieces. And there will be invites coming soon.
I see. So you appear to be on track, if you like, on that particular strategy element. I'm happy to hear that because I am aware of a few firms that are leaving town, and they are in one of our identified priority sector. And so I guess in one sense, I'm a little bit impatient. I hope we can be moving forward to understand who they are and what their circumstances are. I do appreciate the methodical approach you're taking because that's the only way in the long run to capture this picture and build that picture for us. But we are at risk of losing industries. And it's basically because of space and rent and these sorts of things and BCR properties. But I appreciate the methodical approach you're taking, and I just hope that we can keep on track in the strategy that you outline. In the end, I also see foreign investment dollars as being important, and I could elaborate on that, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Stoner?
We're just going to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Pettengill. Any further comments? Go ahead, Councillor Pettengill.
Yeah, I will be supporting this. I think it seems, when we can find external financial support, that's always a good thing. The one thing that did raise a bit of a red flag for me, but I think you did a fairly good job of addressing it, is my concern that I think our real opportunity is with a lot of the businesses, but the experts that we have in town. I think we have done such a good job through our tourism sector to a large degree of attracting a very, very high caliber of people. And so before COVID, going to the sustainability professionals group for a couple of meetings and being part of the tech sector here now, it's just on an incredible level. And so as we pursue these sorts of monies, I hope we don't lose focus on what we actually already have here. And it sounds like we do have a plan to keep that focus there. So I'm happy with that.
I'll call the question. Oh, sorry. Did I see another hand? Councillor Herford?
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion. My only reservation has been around timing in our budget process, but I think that was addressed in the presentation, and 50-cent dollars are worth chasing. So let's do that. Happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other final hands? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, we're on to the consent agenda. So if there's anything in the minutes that needs correcting, you need to pull those, or any correspondence, you can pull that. Look at all the hands. Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I need to pull committee of the whole minutes from September 15th, please.
Okay. Councillor French.
I'd like to pull letter number 1, please.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to pull the special business meeting minutes from September 15 and letters number 3, 7, and 9. I would like to address 7 and 9 together, if that may be possible. Thank you.
Councillor Pettengill.
I was also going to pull 7, but I'll add 8 and 12, please.
Good for you. Yeah. Councillor Race, you want in on this? You want to pull anything? No, you're good tonight? Councillor Herford? No? All right. A motion to approve the consent agenda with the remaining items. Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll do the letters that were pulled under action requested, 13, and the minutes under 14, approval of minutes. Okay, correspondence action requested. First letter is about gas prices in Squamish. Be referred to the mayor for follow-up and response. Great. I'll move that. I love responding to this issue. Now I've got data to send them. Yes. Seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Another from a Como about campfires with smoke, that this be referred to the fire chief for follow-up and response. By Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stone. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Letter from Julie Van Eastern about the HPOP program, be referred to financial services for follow-up and response. Ms. Arthurs?
And I just want, since this got put on the agenda, the finance department, if the grant policy was adopted, to have it referred to
So we're going to refer to Sarah Dicker for response instead of finance because we approved the policy this evening. So the motion should read, be amended to read, refer to arts and culture manager. Sorry. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Councillor French, you pulled letter number 1. So I do have a question about why this appeared on our agenda so late, since the proclamation would have been for October 1, but maybe that was your question, Councillor French.
No, I was intending to just retroactively move that we declare October 1st.
By the procedural bylaw, can we retroactively declare days?
That's a good question.
it's not in the procedure bylaw, but I don't see why you couldn't. I think that this came on late, probably because it was received after the previous agenda had gone on and we hadn't seen it that late.
Okay. So, sorry, Councillor French, did you want to move something?
Yes. So whereas this 30th anniversary of the United Nations International Day of the Older Persons has as the theme pandemics, do they change how we address age and aging, and focuses on raising awareness of the needs of older persons and their contributions to their own health and to the functioning of the societies in which they live. We proclaim and declare that October 1st, 2020 was International Day of Older Persons in the District of Squamish. And I can forward that to the minute taker.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Letter 3, this is Councillor Anderson about Forest Enhancement Society of BC's 2020 Accomplishments Report.
Thank you. I would like to move that this be referred to staff. Now, I'm going to suggest economic development, but I'm going to suggest this letter is relevant to the forestry land strategy that is outlined in the OCP as a future initiative. That is a kind of an interdepartmental exercise, but I trust that the staff will sort out who should be addressing it. The background to this is that this is monies coming from the provincial government to assist the pulp mills to obtain wood waste. And this has been an issue around the province. What is the significance here is that our nearest pulp mill has been starved for wood waste during the Western Forest Products strike over the last year, the longest strike in the history of the industry, and everybody was crying out for hog fuel. We in Squamish, we're still burying it in the ground. The reason is we have no place, or we, the community, the industry, have no place to work from to process hog fuel for the pulp mill. So we kind of left money on the table. And this is an issue that affects First Nations, of course, because they're prominent in this industry. But we do not have any longer a place to work from in the Chikai Fan as a community for processing wood waste that was lost with the transaction with Lot 69. So this is just to point out that there's monies for First Nations in particular, but for the forest industry generally for processing wood waste through this program, and that we need to reflect on how it fits with our forestry land strategy in future. So that's my motion, that it be referred to staff and most likely to economic development's attention.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to jump to letter 8. Councillor Pettengill.
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge and call out Gibson's for basically aligning with our position on wood fiber. I think it was a consistent message across the region. I think I mentioned that before, but I just wanted to thank them for that.
Can you move receipt, please?
Move receipt.
Seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Anderson, you pulled letter 7 and 9 together.
Yes, thank you. Both of them involve regional transit, a private bus service that most of us are all very familiar with, the Squamish Connector, which has been badly affected by the episode at the gondola, and now for the second time. The other letter is another one concerning transit services to North Shore, mainly medical services, in particular for seniors. I'd like to move that these letters be addressed to staff. And now this is a private service, the bus service Squamish Connector, but we do in fact have a new policy together with the SLRD addressing transportation broadly, which has a role for private sector passenger carriers. In terms of what we can do to assist the Squamish Connector, I suggest that perhaps we can introduce them to our Economic Development Department to see if there are indeed business recovery grants from either level of government that they may qualify for. So an informational exchange between the company and our Economic Development Department is what I'm suggesting by referring this to staff. Otherwise, there may be opportunities for Squamish Connector to discuss opportunities with Vancouver Coastal Health, with the school districts, with seniors programming, and whether we may be able to point directions in that, but that will be up to the operator themselves. But we can, of course, look for information about grant programs through Economic Development Office. So I'd like to move that both of these letters be referred to staff.
Are you seconding that, Councillor Penghill?
Well, yeah, I had a question of staff. I don't have a problem with the motion, but I did have a question about letter 7 for staff. I don't know if that has to be dealt with before we move.
Go ahead.
So I am assuming with COVID, we may be getting requests for support from business. This is a private business. It is aligned, I think, with a lot of what we're trying to see in terms of regional transit. But I was wanting to get clarity from staff on what we can and can't do in terms of businesses like this that are reaching out to help, for help during COVID.
Ms. Glende.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott, and thank you for the question. Certainly the community charter, as council knows, precludes the district from supporting one business over another in a specific situation. In terms of this, where I guess I can't speak to the motion because I'm not a council member, but there are a lot of resources out there currently for business through the chamber, and economic development is working with the chamber and can steer businesses to those resources, versus every time a business comes and looks for support, we aren't able to actually give it. We can provide information. There are lots of portals, and we can certainly send them in the right direction.
Community charter is very clear, but we can provide, the chamber has been providing just a ton of information to local businesses about what grants they can access and programs and that sort of thing. I reached out to Mr. Angel and told him to look into Squamish Nation as well as Vancouver Coastal Health, and then I noticed this letter from seniors who might need transportation to medical appointments. So there are other opportunities. It's just that we can't provide funding or money to a private business. We can provide advice, suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
So Councillor Anderson put a motion on the floor to refer it to our staff. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Penghill. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And you were just speaking to the letter about the Squamish Connector, Councillor Anderson? So can you move receipt of letter 9?
Thank you for the clarification. I suppose it isn't necessary that, that's fine. So I'll just move receipt then of letter 9 from Smethurst regarding transit or lack thereof between Squamish and Vancouver.
Seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Motion carries. Finally, letter 12.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to commend Mayor Elliott and Councillor Stoner for this letter. I was able to attend the Black Lives Matter rally in Squamish. It seems like ages ago now, and it was really moving. Some of the hearing some of our community members speak about how they've been impacted with some of our systems, and I was quite pleased with the letter, the tone, the detail, and I think it was quite explicit in calling out some of the issues and calling the government to task on some of the things we need to address. And I think it was very well written, and I really appreciate the letter. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will add our RCMP leadership and our General Manager of Community Services to that list of thanks. It was very much a group effort, and I've had calls from several mayors around the province thanking us for the practical solutions that we offered up in that letter. So it was well worth our while, and we'll continue to pursue this through the all-party committee, looking at modernization of the Police Act in the province. So onwards. Do you want to move receipt of that? seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Can we do the pulled minutes first, Ms. Arthurs, or?
Just in case there's corrections.
Corrections, yeah. Councillor Stoner, Committee of the Whole, September 15th.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, I didn't actually join that meeting until 10:30 a.m. And that was not captured in the minutes. Thank
All
you.
right. So let's approve those minutes with that correction. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Rice. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Anderson, special business meetings from September 15th.
Yes, that staff update on future method. Oh, I'm sorry. The resolution in question is future methodology and approaches for sector impact studies. Moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Herford, that the staff update on future methodology and approaches for sector impact studies be received for information. In fact, I believe that we moved that it be referred to Committee of the Whole. And that has already happened, of course, in our agenda planner. So just a small correction there. That the sector impact studies be referred to Committee of the Whole.
Councillor Anderson moves the approval of those minutes with that correction, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. There's recommendations from Committee of the Whole. That staff bring back a motion to the next special business meeting. Was it the next special business meeting? It seems very short. I think it's to a future special business meeting or a future meeting. Can we just say meeting? Because it might be a Committee of the Whole. The staff bring back a motion to an upcoming meeting with a proposal to fund Tourism Squamish in the amount of $25,000 to be funded by council contingency or another funding source as determined by staff, and that staff bring back a proposal for longer-term funding support for Tourism Squamish. Moved by Councillor Herford. Second by Councillor Stoner. Just for the purposes of clarity to staff, I don't think those two things have to come at the same time. Like the 25,000 is separate from the longer term plan. I don't want to hold one up because of the other. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Committee of the Whole endorsed the budget criteria to be applied to the district financial planning for 2021 to 2025 as presented by the CAO on September 15th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. From September 29th, that the district submit a grant application to the Invest in Canada Infrastructure Program for the Wellness Centre at Brennan Park. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Seniors Hub, that the District of Squamish enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Squamish Senior Citizens Home Society to pursue a license agreement and development of a seniors wellness hub at the West Winds located at 38275 3rd Avenue. You're moving that, Councillor French?
Nope, I have a question.
Okay.
I believe that we have since learned that the time pressure related to this motion is not as significant as it was previously. In light of that, do we need to move on this as quickly as we originally thought?
I'll hand that over to Ms. Golbeck to respond.
Hi, Natasha Golbeck, General Manager of Community Services. Thanks for the question, Councillor French. Though the timeline for construction and completion of the building is longer than district staff had understood up until recently, the timeline for entering into an MOU remains the same for a couple of reasons. One being that the building owner requires financial commitment from the district's part to do the tenant improvements and fit out of the commercial unit. As you will have seen in the report to council from last week, the financial information section, the lease that we would be entering into would include an amortization of the fit out costs over the first 5 years. And so we are in effect paying for those fit out costs. And so they do require our financial commitment should we enter into this agreement. So that's one reason. The other reason why the timeline is relatively unchanged is because the commercial unit is of course on the ground floor of the building, and the ground floor is effectively done first in terms of decisions around electrical and HVAC and so on. And so in order to design the space in a way that would fit our needs in terms of programming, decisions would need to be made relatively early with respect to the entire building envelope and the total project timeline. So the sort of timeline remains the same. However, the difference is that this does give us a lot more time to do community engagement with the seniors of Squamish in terms of what kinds of a programming model would be most appropriate and effective, what programming remains at the 55, what programming goes into the Seniors Wellness Hub, and what would go to other centers like Brennan Park. So that is the main change in terms of timeline, is just that we have a longer runway for good engagement.
Okay,
Any other
thank
questions?
you.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor French?
I'd like to propose a slightly different wording for the motion.
Well, just let me check in with other councillors to see if there's any other questions at this time.
I'm so backlit here. It's a little bit better. Hey, sorry, it's like a little bit eerie.
Go ahead, Councillor French.
Okay. So the motion is that the District of Squamish staff consult with the Squamish Senior Center Society in advance of the District of Squamish entering into a memorandum of understanding with Squamish Senior Citizen Society to pursue a license agreement and development of a seniors wellness hub at the West Winds located at 38275 3rd Avenue.
Councillor Pettengill?
Just a clarifying question for the mover. Is there a timeline attached to this?
I would leave that up to staff, so no.
Is there a seconder? Or do you have a question, Councillor Herford?
I have a question. Can I just hear that wording again one more time?
Certainly. That District of Squamish staff consult with the Squamish Senior Center Society in advance of the District of Squamish entering into a memorandum of understanding with Squamish Senior Citizens Society to pursue a license agreement and development of a seniors wellness hub at the West Winds located at 38275 3rd Avenue. Oh, yeah,
Is there a seconder? Councillor Anderson? Are you seconding?
Yes, please.
Councillor French, do you want to comment?
Yeah, certainly. We've been hearing for some time that seniors feel that they have not been included and are feeling left out of the decision-making process in moving on this memorandum of understanding. And I think giving them an opportunity to have a conversation with staff before that MOU is signed is appropriate, and I'd like to see that happen.
Councillor Race.
Thank you. I'm not going to support this motion. My concern is that couple of concerns. First of all, the memorandum of understanding is not a binding document. It represents the district acquiring a piece of land or an interest in land in this case, or leading to a process acquiring an interest in land, which is a leasehold interest. It is time sensitive, as we've heard from staff, and consultation is kind of a broad word, and you never know when you've done enough or when you haven't. And that can go on for quite a long time and drag this process out. And so I'm not prepared to see that happen. I think it is important, and I agree with staff, that the district indicate its intent to use that space so that the Seniors Home Society can plan accordingly. And this doesn't accomplish that. So if this is defeated, I would be intending to, for those reasons, to move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ray, Councillor Pettengill, and then Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, a few things. After the last discussion, or in the last discussion, I had it in my head that the money we were paying for the use of that facility was quite high, despite staff claiming it was affordable. But when I actually sat down, did the math, I think it worked out to about, on average over the 10 years, $30 an hour to access that 6,000 square feet of space. So that did change my perspective, and I am concerned. While the space is limited in how it can be used, I think it would be a missed opportunity if we do not secure that space for some sort of programming. I recognize too that because of the nature of the rest of the building, this space is particularly and uniquely appropriate for exclusively seniors programming. When I talk to seniors, some of them wanted a facility and a place that was only seniors, and there weren't young people around at all. But other seniors I spoke to really wanted multi-generational programming. And so, there's some comments from the presentation earlier and so on, and concern about seniors losing the Activity 55, and I don't think that's the proposal here. The proposal is to add additional programming space, and yes, do some multi-generational programming space at the Activity 55, but not take it away. So I guess where I got to is that I am nervous about losing this opportunity. I did still have some fundamental problems with the MOU, which is I do think we need to secure more access than just 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday, especially at that price. So I could be amenable to supporting a variation of this or something if there is some sort of timeline and an expectation that we address or confirm longer access, and that there is a commitment to work with the seniors on and some clarity just in our resolution that this is in addition to seniors programming at the Activity 55, multi-generational programming at the Activity 55. So that's where I got to. I will have to wait to see where the discussion ends up on the final resolution to know whether or not I can support this.
Okay, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I appreciate and applaud Councillor French's gesture here, and I'm supporting it as a seconder for the purposes of this discussion. I think it's important we do have it at this time. Now, consultation, as Councillor Race has suggested, is a broad phrase, and I'm trusting that it will occur and that we have witnessed the goodwill. We've seen the testimonial of the goodwill on the part of the Senior Centre Society expressed by Mr. Winterburn this evening. I believe that we need to be mindful of some history here, that the council, 2 councils ago, had a seniors select committee, and they decided to dissolve that committee and turn over that function to the Senior Centre Society. That was a motion of council, a resolution of council to disband its own select committee and turn over that advisory function to that group. And I think that we'll move forward and we'll find new venues for this dialogue. But we are also a subscriber to the IAP2 principles, and we should be striving for the place in the spectrum of collaborate. And I look forward to being in a place where we can be collaborating on facilities and programming generally with the Senior Center Society or future groups that will take on its role. I will not be supporting this resolution, however, but I do respect that it's been put forward, and I'm glad we're having this discussion. And I'll be supporting otherwise the staff motion. Thank you.
Councillor Stoner.
Thank you, and thank you to Councillor French for bringing this motion forward. I will, however, not be supporting it following some of my council colleagues' comments. I am concerned about the time sensitivity of the MOU and linking that specifically to consultation at this stage. Staff in their presentation at Committee of the Whole did outline the outreach they had done to the Senior Center. And I don't think that that's the end of the conversation. I heard from staff in that meeting that there is still ample opportunity to engage and collaborate on the full vision for what that new space will look like. And so I would be happy to entertain a motion that would perhaps add some additional language to the staff recommendation on requirement for continued consultation and engagement once the MOU is signed, but I'm hesitant to hold up the MOU at this point and secure that opportunity for additional programming space that will allow the 55 to become more multi-generational in its programming. Thank you.
Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this motion, although I do support the spirit of what it tries to achieve. As my fellow councillors have mentioned, I think securing the space when the opportunity is presenting itself is important, and as is consultation. Consultation at this point around this space first needs to have the space secured, and then we can go forward and work on the programming and space exact build out that's required there, as well as what programming won't be able to be accommodated in this new space, so that we can continue to evolve the programming at the 55 to maximize its potential. So thank you to Councillor French for bringing this proposed motion forward to really kick off this discussion, but I won't be supporting the motion at this time.
Thank you. I'll just add some comments to this. I won't support the motion because I think there is an essence of timeliness here, and also I think consultation has to happen broadly with seniors across the community, not just with one group. And I think our decision is to decide on how to best use our assets and make sure there is enough space and a dedicated space for seniors. So I am happy to move forward with the Memorandum of Understanding, knowing that it will come back to Council, because in Committee of the Whole, we talked about making sure the Memorandum of Understanding provides sufficient notice period before the lease ends, or potentially lease renewal terms that are in favor of the district, to ensure that we have access to that space for quite some time. I also think we need to rethink having the hours in the Memorandum of Understanding, because I think that actually limits our consultation going forward about what programming fits best at each venue, whether Brennan Park, the West Winds, or the 55. And I'm not sure that detail is needed in a Memorandum of Understanding, but rather let's see what the outcome is of consultations with seniors in the community. So that MOU will come back to Council for approval. I would suspect, based on the feedback that was provided at Committee of the Whole, and then that would guide the license agreement discussions going forward. It doesn't sound like the motion on the floor is going to pass, and if staff recommendation is put forward, I would add a clause to that saying that staff bring back an engagement plan going forward, so that staff bring back a plan to broadly engage seniors in the district about programming at 55 West Winds and Brennan Park. I think that would be a good addition to the staff recommendation. So I will call the question on the motion on the floor. All those in favor and opposed? Mayor Elliott, Councillor Pettengill, Councillor Herford, Councillor Anderson, Councillor Stoner, Councillor Race, opposed, motion fails. So moving on to the main, or the original motion, the staff recommendation, Councillor Race.
Thank you. And I was thinking, actually, you read my mind. I was thinking, in moving this, I would suggest adding a second paragraph to the motion, the staff recommendation about bringing back an engagement plan with all seniors groups or seniors groups broadly concerning programming and other, I'll call it features of the spaces you mentioned. I think you actually had better wording than I have had. So if you want to put in the second paragraph, that would be the resolution.
Okay. Which wording do we have written down?
The addition?
Yeah.
That you said, and that staff bring back to a plan to broadly engage seniors on the programming at 55 West Wind and Brennan Parker.
Does that work, Councillor Race?
Yep, I'll move that.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Stoner seconds. Any further comments? Councillor Anderson, Councillor Pettengill, Councillor French.
Yes, I'm concerned with the interpretation that regarding, and I'm going to quote Mayor Elliott, broadly across, I'm sorry, I didn't write it down clearly enough, but that we need to go across the community to consult with seniors. That has always happened. But the fact is that a previous council gave a mandate to a particular organization to take over the functions of a council select committee. And that organization, the Senior Center Society, has done a lot of heavy lifting. And it was put together with the work of 3 ex-mayors, former district financials director, economic development officer, a who's who of volunteers in this community. That society has a special status and still does. It has a collaboration agreement signed with the district. The collaboration across the seniors community has always happened, and it has happened with the leadership of the Senior Center Society. They have pointed to other groups, the Sikh community, Squamish Nation community. So I'm a little bit concerned about interpretations that could be made that we are pushing anybody aside. Their role continues to be unique, and it will be until we find a new organizational path among the seniors community in consultation with the district, but we're not there yet. This society has a special status, and I'm concerned about interpretations that may be made that we haven't been going across the community consulting with seniors, because they have. That Senior Center Society has made sure we do that. They've always done that through the 2017 exercise and through the whole building process of the Senior Center 10 to 12 to 15 years ago. I just wanted to make that clear and make sure that that's on the record on my part. Thank you.
Whatever order I said earlier, I think it went Anderson, French, Pettengill.
Okay. I'm happy that we're having this conversation, and really ultimately what I was looking for was a commitment on the part of council that we would consult with seniors in Squamish on this issue, and that's what we've got. I support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Pettengill.
Yeah, I hope I didn't miss my opportunity. I was just wanting a clarifying question. It was mentioned we presume that the MOU will come back to council at some point, and I'd just like to clarify if that is accurate with staff.
Yeah, that is true.
Thank you.
I'll just clarify the reason I added that motion and the wording that I did is because it's not to discount any one group. I would absolutely expect that board would be part of the engagement, but it's a different plan to bring up something that just engages groups versus providing an opportunity for any senior in the district to weigh in that may not be aligned with the MenShed or the Squamish Seniors Center Society. So that was my only reason, is that it has a broad reach, but I would fully expect, like in all of our other engagements, that our staff reach out to our stakeholder groups that represent the various folks in the community. So if we were doing an environmental project, we would reach out to Squamish Can as one of those stakeholders, and the same goes for this. I just wanted to make sure that what we got back wasn't an engagement plan that was this narrow, but an engagement plan that was broader. So I did not mean to have anyone assume that I was leaving people out, but just the opposite. So I am supportive of the motion on the floor. Councillor Pangill.
So thank you. With that clarification, I will support this motion. I think I will be looking when the MOU comes back to see the restrictions around the timing removed or expanded somehow. The other piece I just want to highlight, I think I have read in a lot of the emails that seniors have made significant investments into the Activity 55, and I still don't know concretely what that means, but I think somehow through our engagement and as we're thinking about programming, it would be good to acknowledge that and sort of be able to point to, here's how we've addressed that and considered that as we built programming and figured out how to best use this space in a way that works for everyone.
Thank you. Not seeing any other hands, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the tourism impact study that the district endorsed, the Squamish Tourism Impact Study dated January 2020 as presented at Committee of the Whole. Motion to extend. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor French. You're on the ball today. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Tourism Impact Study. Who would like to move that? Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We gave readings to permissive tax exemptions. Do we still have to do this one? No. Okay. Hey, look, I just saved us 12 seconds.
Saved the meeting too.
Committee minutes and reports. Smoke Bluff Park Committee minutes from September 24th, that Smoke Bluff Park Committee provide and install signage at the corner of Panorama Place, Smoke Bluff Road for 1 accessible parking space and 4 to 5 family parking spaces, and that new parking signs be funded from the 2021 fiscal year Smoke Bluff Park operating budget. Are we budgeting in advance? Or is this okay?
It's more of an endorsement of their budget that they get annually.
Okay.
How they're going to spend it.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That council review and consider increasing the Smoke Bluff Park operating budget by $1,500 to $6,500 for the 2021 fiscal year to fund the continued maintenance of the portable toilets, and that council fund the install of a urine diversion toilet at Octopus Gardens for a total of $15,000 in 2021.
Separate.
Those are separate motions, but shouldn't these be referred to budget?
You can. So I think Public Works has been funding the first one out of their budget. But the second one is definitely a project.
Councillor Stoner, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, happy to jump in with some context. So this time of year, the Smoke Bluff Park Committee reviews kind of their preferences for capital budget or capital projects within the park. And the first motion speaks to an increase in kind of what they refer to as their operating budget, because they did add an additional portable toilet at Tunnel Bluffs this past year as a pilot project, and they funded that out of their kind of contingency. Typically, the portable toilets within the rest of Smoke Bluff Park is funded out of the operations specifically, and not the Smoke Bluff Park earmarked component. And so there was a request that going forward, that additional toilet is funded out of, or that the Smoke Bluff Park operating budget is increased to account for that cost. And similarly, for both of these motions, it was discussed that this would be referred to council for budget deliberations. So that is a perfectly appropriate thing to do here.
Mr. Buxton, would you like to speak?
Councillor Stoner just answered that question. Yes, it's referred to budget.
Okay, so can we refer the motions from the September 24th, 2020 Smoke Bluff Park Committee meeting to budget for consideration? Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Can I do all the in-camera announcements together?
Okay, it's just a motion. They're just on there for information.
Oh, these are on for information, so I don't have to do anything. Saved us another 12 seconds. Okay, there's no unscheduled public attendance. Open question period for clarification. Last time I checked with the moderator, there was no one on the stream or on WebEx. We're all alone together. Any council or staff announcements? Councilor Pettengill?
Yeah, I just want to say I participated in Orange Shirt Day through the municipality, but also at my office job. And so I think it's really good to see this catch on, and each time it happens, I think more and more people understand what it's about. And so it was a really good day to be surrounded by that at so many different places all day long. The other thing I wanted to highlight is, and I alluded to it earlier, I attended at the Whistler Learning Center a talk on the impact of autonomous vehicles on the Sea to Sky corridor and the discussion on what that's going to mean. And it was really fascinating, and it got into flying automated vehicles as well. And they actually had someone from a company that is piloting that right now. They're flying, I believe it's for cancer patients, isotopes or something, from Vancouver to Victoria. And so this stuff is rolling. The thing, I know people sort of snicker a little bit when you talk about automated flying vehicles, but the thing that is really the obstacle, the technical obstacle to personal flying vehicles has been the drivers. And we are at a point now with the technology where the computers can do it. And so this is really quickly becoming a reality. And so just with land-based vehicles alone not needing parking because vehicles won't be parked, we're also being able to very soon use 3D space. And so, something in the back of my mind with some of our earlier discussions to get today, and I think as planners and as municipalities, it is something that it's time to start paying attention to this. And it was just a really fascinating discussion. And I have a sense that our corridor, we may be leaders in this for a number of reasons.
I think Mr. Gunn's head will explode if we tell him that phase 4 of the zoning bylaw update considers 3D use of land and airspace. So you can tell him that, Councilor Pettengill. You moved that motion. Thanks for sharing that. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you. I'd like to take the opportunity to encourage my councillor colleagues to put October 18th in their calendars. That's Sunday, Squamish Rivers Day, Take 2. Take 2 because the event unfortunately had to be delayed from our traditional Rivers Day a little bit earlier. But that means we're going to have more fish in the creek right next door to us. Lots of booths and diverse community organizations and children running around. We might bust a couple of beaver dams. We'll see if there's no inspectors from DFO around. And lots of fun and activities, especially for families. So October 18th, McNaughton Park in Valleycliff, and it'll be going from 11 o'clock to 3.
That's fantastic. A comment to undermine DFO by one of our councillors captured in perpetuity on our feed. It'll be an awesome event into Rivers Day before. So thank you for bringing that up. On Saturday, it is Fire Ops Day training for most of council, and Ms. Golbeck will be joining us. And I'm sorry, Councilor Stoner, that you'll miss this one. I'm sure there'll be another. And thank you to our firefighter union for coordinating this for us and giving us a taste of what it is like to be on the front lines as our firefighters. And I'm totally scared and totally excited and looking forward to safely sharing the day with my council colleagues and our local firefighters. So it's going to be raining. So how bad can the fires get, right? It'll be raining. So anyway, any other comments, announcements? Okay, seeing none. Motion to terminate. Councilor Hertford, seconded by Councilor Stoner. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. For another great Tuesday, Council. And I'll see most of you on Saturday. Oh, and Councilor Race, I'll see you tomorrow for Mayor's Drop-In. I forgot. It's Mayor's Drop-In tomorrow at noon at OCM Pavilion. Bye, everyone.